got an hour and a half left. So we're good.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, we got these questions. How many more questions?
There's 10 total. We've only gotten through 2.
All right. We can do it. Let's try it. All right. We can do this.
We can totally do this.
We can do this.
For sure. This is good, though. The longer, the better. I love the long ones.
Yeah. I just know, like, even from listening to podcasts, I know for myself, I'm like, am I going to say something that somebody's going to press play on this and go, that I got something out of that?
There's no way.
There's no way to know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the music. Like, there's no way to know
bro.
What's going to be a golden moment for somebody.
Exactly.
I like golden moments. Gosh. Oh, I think I put that.
No, I don't think it was in the shots. Oh, bro.
There's surprisingly just a little bit of coffee left.
Oh. Okay, we're going to clap.
And we're going to do good this time.
Yes. 3, 2, 1. Damn it.
Oh,
let's do it again. Let's do it again.
That was the worst.
Let's do it again. 3, 2, 1.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to this month's episode of Moment Friendly Introspection, a conversational podcast with creative guests and thoughtful questions. I'm your host, Stephen Floyd, and today joining me is Kevin Rooney. Kevin, how are you?
I am awesome.
That's great.
Good day.
You wouldn't know this, but just to let you know, I did get the intro correct.
Yeah?
Yes.
Let's go.
I tried it last time, and it was just like, wait, I think I flubbed the word there, and then editing, I was like, crap, dang it. And like, no one would have known unless I said something in the next episode, but
a few more episodes, you can do it in your sleep.
Exactly. But then by that time, it'll be over. And I'm just like, all right.
It'll be
I couldn't have gotten it right the first few times. But I guess it's just a showing of my progress.
Oh, 100%.
That's good. Progress 100%. Is good.
Progress is great. We should be able to show growth. Growth is inspirational. Having everything perfect from the get-go seems like, when does that ever happen?
True. Then why do we all think that way?
I think we're just nervous about showing weaknesses or feeling like if we don't have it together, somebody's going to be like, like,
yeah,
like, oh, it's his first time go around at this.
Yeah.
And you're like, actually, it's my third.
Yeah.
You're like, so you're only about 2 off, or in this case, 4th. Like, I remember the very first time I had a song mastered.
Okay.
I had it mastered at this studio in Hartford. And
Connecticut?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I was working, it was a record I did in my bedroom.
Nice.
For a high school student's older brother.
Okay.
He was like, he goes, like, my friend in high school, he was like, he was talking to his older brother. His brother was like, man, I just don't know how to record myself. And he's just like, dude, I think Rooney's got like some stuff to record. I don't know. He's got cables everywhere. Like, I think that's what he said. He's just like, dude's just got like cables everywhere. And like, he could probably do something.
Yeah.
And ended up making a 5-song EP for him that I mixed myself in Logic.
Okay.
And then I brought it to this guy at the studio, and the guy literally he was mastering it, and I wanted to be there while he did it because I didn't know what he was doing.
Sure.
And he literally goes, it's just like, he was kind of being snarky with me. He was like, he's like, this sounds like you've never mixed a record before ever in your life.
Why
And
would he say that out loud?
He was just, I guess, I don't know what
Wow.
argument he got with his wife that morning. But he was like, he meant to do this, he meant to say this snarky thing, and I literally was like, you're absolutely correct. I've never done this before.
Wow.
And he was like, and then immediately shifted. He was like, okay, well now I feel bad. I'm like, don't feel bad. Like I need, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like, that's why I'm using you to master it. Yeah. And he told me all the stuff I was doing wrong. And I was like, noted. And, but yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, he's like, this sounds like the first time you've ever made a record before. And I'm like, yeah.
What was it called? Do you remember?
It was from my friend Evan Gibb.
Okay.
It was I don't remember the songs off the top of my head. Sorry,
sure.
Sorry, Evan.
Sorry.
But if he hears this, but it was the first ever EP I made, and I just remember he was like, "I want to make a record that's kind of like my influences," which was Jack Johnson, Dave Matthews, and John Mayer. And in high school, a high school student in Connecticut, I was like, let's go.
This might be the whitest story you have.
Whitest story. Like, that was it. That's what we listened to. Yeah. So I was like, let's do it. And and we failed massively.
Yeah.
And yet we were so proud of it because we were like, we had let ourselves be like, we've never done this before. It's awesome. It's only when you meet some of those people that are like, oh, dude, you're not experienced.
Yeah.
Or like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
That then like seeps into your brain and makes you nervous about trying new things.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like, those people are out there, but there's some people who say that in a loving way. It's like, okay, you don't know what you're doing, but like, let me help you. Let me like show you some tips. Like, kind of like this guy did, but maybe his first comment could have been a little lighter.
I think most of the time when you're hearing that sort of negative talk down, there's some sort of inferiority complex that person's feeling, and in order to make themselves feel better, they're having to like, well, at least I'm better. Like, dude, you're not even close to professional level.
Yeah.
And that sort of like when they're like trying to be professional level, and they're doing this sort of like kind of like talk to you. It's almost like, in a way, I never understood it until probably about 10 years in.
Wow, man.
I mean, I just didn't. Because I would just hear that and I would just be like, oh my gosh, like, they're right.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, they're just projecting their own inferiority complex.
Yeah.
They're putting you on, and they're letting you know when they do it. They're putting you on a little like chart of like, just letting you know you're below me.
Yeah.
And that's sad when like growth is just the natural thing that happens, and wherever somebody is on their like journey of growing, doesn't even matter what you're on. Like, like at least you're moving. Like, the worst thing to do is just to be the same or get stuck. But like, movement is why any of us can do anything that we're doing, because at one point we weren't able to, and then we put our effort into something, and then years later we look back and be like, man, like, look where I came from. Or look where I'm at now. Like, I think that's a massively inspirational thought. Just growth in general should just be inspirational and liberating.
That's good. Jeez. Okay, so you remember your first record you worked on. Do you remember the second record you worked on?
The second record I worked on was a record I did at college for the first person I met.
Okay.
With like, when you're like, that first EP I made, and I know it's really funny, but that first EP I made me actually, it gave me this little like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Even though I had the guy that was like, sounds like you've never done this ever. I was like, I haven't.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I think I kind of want to. And so I ended up moving to Nashville and going to school here to try and learn how to do it. And I met a guy on campus who was a country music singer, and we made an EP, and that was also a very tragic, like man, we missed the mark so much, but I didn't know. I didn't know what the mark was because I had only been here for like a few months, and we just wanted to make something that we could take on the road and play some shows with on the weekends.
Yeah.
Which in reality is like kind of still the best thing to do. Like just get stuff out there, like try it and get better. But yeah, both that first record and that second record are probably nowhere to be found right now because it's just like they probably went back and was like, oh man, gosh, I'm now embarrassed of this. But like when you're 18, 17, 18 or 19, like you did something. You made something out of nothing. You made something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Or you pulled together and like did things the wrong way or did things the hard way because you only had so much gear. Like the only way I was able to track drums that entire first record was I had a 4-channel mixer and I could only mic 4 drums, or I can mic 4 things. So I could have a kick, snare, and 2 overheads, or I could have only direct mics, only kick, snare, tom-tom, and they would go into a mixer, and then that would go stereo into Logic.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like I was just mixing off of it. It was just it was just a drum stem because I didn't have the interface that could input for more than 2 channels. Funny enough, that's actually like I thought I was like, gosh, I'm just like, this is so wrong. Like I'm definitely not doing it the right way. Like turns out that's how they made some of those early Beatles records. Because they only had so many tracks.
Yeah.
And they had to submix things. And I didn't know, but I was just like, I was terrible at it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but in a weird way, it's like I actually looked back and was like, whoa, like I chose to do it that way instead of doing it this way. Like, I don't know. Like you just sort of like, whoa, like I had what I had. I made it work. And I don't think I'll ever track drums that way ever again, but it is fun to like look back and be like, whoa, that's how I used to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, both those are definitely nowhere to be found right now. And it's because we've looked back and we're like, man, we are so far away from that, and thankful for that.
Yeah. Working with what you have is so essential. Like that's where some of the most creative things happen. Cause like you're broke or you only have what's in a room. It's just like, okay, gotta create something. But like either you don't know better or you don't have the funds or whatever. Like whatever you end up creating, probably some of your most beautiful work. Whether it's quality at this moment or not, it's still just like the wonder around that creation. I think it sticks with you.
And just being thankful for what you have, and then using it in a joyful way, as opposed to like I really want this, and I can't make a great anything without this, and that will literally stop people from creating.
Yeah,
like I can't make music. I don't have good gear, or I can't make any music. I don't have this thing, and it's like, then 5 years go by, and you're like, you turn around, and you're like, what have I been doing? Like I should have been making something. I should have been like getting out all my bad ideas. So that now I wish I could be like, I definitely had this thought, like looking back, like there's a point where you're like, man, I when I just hit like doing this for 10 years, like that, I'm like, man, I wish I had been doing it 10 years when I started. Like I wish, I wish I was 20 years into this. Like, but you're always gonna have a, I wish.
Yes.
I still do. Like I still like have little like, man, I wish I had that, and maybe someday I will. But until then, make the best with what you got, and love doing it, so that you don't look back and you're not like bitter about what, like the experience. You look back and you're filled with joy, and you connect that experience with moments of joy as opposed to moments of bitterness. I think that'll last longer. I think joy helps certain things last longer.
Good.
That make sense?
It does for me. And I'm sure people can relate, whoever's watching this. Good Lord. Yeah. But funny enough, also for me, like the things that have hurt me do stick with me longer.
That have
Or the
hurt
thing,
you?
yes, hurt me or that I'm bitter about or that upset me. Sadly, that's the thing that sticks around. And usually I can get to a place where I'm far enough removed from it. It was like, okay, what beauty was in that?
Mm-hmm.
How can I shift the narrative of that memory? But like, that's just where my brain goes. Like, oh, this sucked. Or like people who lie in
Mm.
bed and think like, oh, that thing I said in middle school 15
Ugh.
years ago. Why did I say that? People are still
Mm.
thinking about that when no one's thinking about that.
No
But
one's thinking about it except for you.
yeah, the worst moments stick with me. But I have been trying to go back and be like, okay, what else good was happening around that time? How can I shift this?
I feel like there's a little bit of both. Like when you think of all the achievements, all the good things you've done. You're like, oh my gosh, like I remember all the hard. You remember like the first things that come to mind are always the horror stories.
Yeah.
But like for some reason it was like, well, if there's so many horror stories, why'd you keep doing it? Like if there's so many bad experiences, why'd you keep doing it? Probably because there was one time that there was joy and you're trying to find that.
Mm.
And I don't know, like it's that's why it can be both.
Yeah.
Like you can go through, you're like, man, all these negative things stick with me, but I'm still here. Why? Because when I look back, there was actually a joy filled moment somewhere. And that actually like kind of like the little that's like it's the coal that the coal that actually keeps on burning that's allowing the engine to keep running.
Yeah.
But yeah, but with enough dead coals, like it'll kill the engine.
Mm.
I mean, if you can find the burning coals and figure out how to find more of those or how to treasure more of those, and then uh, and how else to build the fire, like how can I keep the fire going? Like, I mean, that's a better way of doing this than the other way around of just like, how long could I keep doing this? How long? How long? And I've had moments where I felt like that, like, how long am I going to keep doing this?
Yeah.
We talked about in the car, the like, I feel like what I've experienced a lot in my life is a lot of pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a cuss word. Like it's like, ugh, pivot, oh, pivot. I hate that word because of all the times that I've pivoted, maybe for reasons I didn't want to. Like most of the times, like sometimes you pivot because you're like, you know what, I'm going to make a change and I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Yeah.
make a bet. I'm going to go in a different direction. And then there's like real life situations like 2020 where we all pivoted for like reasons outside of our control.
Yeah.
And or you pivot because you're no longer working at a job.
Yeah.
Or you were working with a team like an artist and they went in a different direction and it's like you're pivoting for other reasons and the pivot is really hard, but somehow I don't know. I mean, the Lord, I think it's gotta be the Lord.
Yeah.
And just a healthy sense of positivity that has helped me get through all of those changes.
Yeah. I definitely feel the pivot. And like in the car, we were talking about a period where I was doing a lot of singing at my church and I shifted out of singing for various reasons. Um, and people just didn't know how to handle it. I was like, I'm doing something different now. Please don't make me get into it. But it was just hard for everyone else, for me to not be doing the thing they wanted from me.
Well, no one likes change outside of their control. Like they're like, I like change when I make the change.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it permeates everything. Like, why'd they stop doing that? I like that.
Yeah.
Why'd this restaurant stop serving this special? That was my thing.
Yeah.
Like they can't do that to me. They can't change my life. They can't no. Like
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there.
Of course.
It's
Yeah.
all of us having to react to change. And how do we handle change? How does our body handle it? How does our mind handle it? How does our soul handle like It was, but not anymore.
Yeah.
That is something I am not saying I've totally figured out, but I do feel like I've gone through multiple seasons where I've learned things that help.
Yeah.
And most of the time a big thing is positivity and learning to see the bright side and learning to see the good out of that. Like for you, I mean, I'm going to assume, I'm going to throw a lot of assumptions in there. Please tell me when I'm wrong.
Okay.
Like
you're wrong. No.
Don't. Immediately. Assumption, dude, I read your mind, you're wrong. No, but like let's just see what happens. I'm going to assume I'm going to make an ASS out of you and me.
Hey, go for it.
That's what my mom used to say.
Yes.
But I'm gonna assume that during that period of time when you stopped singing at church, there was probably a little bit of joy of like, I don't have to do that. I don't have that weight. I don't have that weight on me anymore.
Absolutely.
Like you're as much as you're like, oh, I'm gonna take a step back. I need the break. That first Sunday where you didn't have to do it, you're like, oh my gosh, I can just go to church again.
Yes.
Or if there was like, if there were people that were hard to work with, you're like, oh, I don't have to hear their annoying comments ever again. I'm refueling the engine a little bit. But
Yes.
if you are also hearing the like, why aren't you singing anymore, man? Why aren't you singing? You're running into people who a little bit has changed and they like to say like, no, go back to doing what you were doing. I liked what you did before. But like, why don't people start off with, hey, do you like playing keys better? Does that make you feel good? Before they start giving their own opinion, but people just naturally don't do that.
Yeah.
It's funny. And it's just because that's the way we naturally handle things. And it's kind of funny. It's like, I actually like doing this. Have you asked me that yet?
Yeah. And I did like it.
You did?
I liked it a lot.
Did you find a period, was there a period of time where then you missed it?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's natural too.
Yeah. I think it was mostly after I had left that church.
Yeah.
And like I stopped singing mainly because of like anxiety, depression stuff. It just felt like I literally couldn't use my voice anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to college, like a couple years removed from that decision, I realized like, man, that sucked. And like I didn't have time to like mourn the loss of that experience. Mm-hmm. It just felt like something that was robbed from me. And I just couldn't go back to it. And I wasn't going to a church at that time. I'm not going to a church now where that's an option. So like I didn't have a place to use my voice anymore. I was just like, man, that sucked.
It's an interesting thing that we just covered was this massive dichotomy of like that first week after you not singing, feeling a weight lifted off your shoulder. And then years later, you think you're associating it with it being an experience being robbed from you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny what the memory does.
Yeah.
And to looking back at periods of time and like, how does Stephen right now feel about that period of time?
Yeah.
And I guarantee in 10 years from now, Stephen will look at that period of time differently than you look at it right now.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how we naturally look back on a season. Like I look back on a season touring with Russell Dickerson.
Ooh.
Right now as a super, super like grateful for that experience. I am so thankful for the white Sprinter that had barely working AC that we took across the country. And at that time, I remember thinking like, there's no AC. There's no AC. I wish we had AC. Or, oh, it's finally working today. Hooray. Or,
the Lord
like
has smiled upon us.
Or I gotta drive this thing now. Yeah. They're telling me it's my turn to drive this thing. Like, it's funny because I look back at that. Now I look back and be like, that was fun.
Yeah.
And if there was a way for 22-year-old me to get a message from 32-year-old me saying like, hey, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd probably be like, what are you talking about, man? I'm not getting paid anything like I want to get paid, man. Like, I'd probably fight with myself now because you can't like feel. I mean, everyone's got to work through their feelings about whatever's going on.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I don't know. I've been trying to choose more positivity mindset, and I look back at that season when I wasn't making what I wanted to make. I was super busy. I was saving up for a ring.
Oh.
From my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that was stressful because I was like also just trying to make sure I paid my own bills. And then I'm like, man, I gotta buy this ring, and I gotta pay, and am I ever gonna get a raise? And all those current stresses of trying to figure it out and trying to climb that, whatever ladder is in our head. Because somebody
of course
years before that told me that I wasn't like an A-list drummer yet. And I was like, I gotta get my way there. 32-year-old me is now looking back at that and like, man, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. And that's a healing thing for the creative mind. I really believe is looking at seasons of life and being able to be like, that taught me.
Yeah.
That I can take something away from that. I don't know. That I think that's probably just getting older.
Maybe.
And just looking back, but also realizing like, hey, if I didn't realize the blessings of that season, what blessings am I not realizing about this season I'm in right now?
Ooh, baby, that'll preach.
I didn't come here to preach, man.
But here you are.
I mean, it is Sunday.
True. I think looking back on the time when I stepped down from singing, now I still get some of the heartache of like, man, that was right for me. I get some pleasure of like, it was really nice to like step off stage and explore my own faith.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was just building like my own faith out from under my parents and like finding what worked for me, but then dealing with all like the anxiety, depression stuff. And just, oh man, is this not what I thought it was? So like having the ability to search through that and not have to play a role on stage. Like, yeah, I know what I'm doing for all the kids that we were leading for or whatever. That was really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an experience with the kids that were in that youth group where they were like, man, like, I'm super thankful for when you were leading. Like, have you connected with anybody from that? Not everybody gets a chance to. I'm not saying you should have. I'm not saying you should Facebook find them and stalk them and be
worry,
like,
I won't.
Hey, like survey. Want to throw out this little survey? How was I as your youth worship leader?
Yeah.
All those years ago.
On a scale of awesome to crap, how great was that?
No, I mean, did you ever have like an example? Was there a period of time where you were like met with like somebody was like, oh, hey, like I really love when you sing. I mean, you had to have gotten some of it if people were like, why aren't you singing anymore?
Yes, but it was never the kids. Which I say kids, they were all my age.
Oh, interesting.
It
so it wasn't. It was the adults who were saying that.
Yes.
Oh man, so that's
which made it so much harder because like I feel like I'm letting people down. Am I supposed to be doing this? Like I feel like I shouldn't, but people who are older than me and seem to know what they're doing are like, you should be doing this.
Yeah. Or it's like it was the adults that were like, oh, we need to have somebody there. And if he doesn't want to do it anymore, we need to figure out why. Why doesn't he want to do it anymore?
Maybe.
Like, that's a whole nother, I'm like, that's a whole nother, and everybody's driven by certain incentives.
That's
like
true.
Everybody has an incentive. If there's a leader that needs to have people in a spot, and that person, for whatever reason, is like, this spot's not for me anymore. That person's like, they're going to be like, well, why not? I like you. You were doing great. Why not? Because I need somebody there. That's the incentive. They need to have that spot filled. They need to have everything going well, nice. And sometimes people just like one day it's like, hey, this isn't working for me anymore.
Yeah.
And that level of honesty should always be respected, more than like, or at least primarily, because it's like, hey, if it's not working for somebody, like, then they're not connecting joy with what they're doing. Then somebody needs to be in that spot who is connecting joy. Not saying like, oh no, get that guy out of there. Like, no, give that guy some space.
Yes.
Because life's too short to be doing all these things and not connecting it with joy, good experiences, positive experience. I'm not trying to be this like happy smile guy all the time, but I just think that naturally creatives dig on themselves so much that we have to just maintain awareness of how blessed we are to be in certain positions, how blessed we are to be able to do certain things, like make, create. Other places, it's much harder to do that. Like, I mean, you can go on and on about the level of like, just level of even status that requires. Yes. Like somebody to have like to be able to be like, man, I'm gonna wake up and create art today.
That's kind of insane.
It is insane. You know what I mean? Like that's actually a status symbol.
Yeah.
To be able to like wake up and
there's so much privilege in that.
There is.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use the P word because
I'll use it.
You'll use it.
I got the card.
You got the card. Like, I'm gonna use it. But I like, I mean, but it's no, those interchangeably, like it actually like really, like there really is that. And me being able to wake up and go, you know what? Like I'm gonna choose to go and work on music. Like I had to work really hard to get there. That doesn't mean like I woke up one morning and was just like, oh, this is what I was given today. Like, no, I got to work really hard, but that's the privilege is I was able to work really hard.
Yeah. Ooh.
And attain it. As opposed to like, you don't like, if you worked so freaking hard, but just everything around you doesn't allow you to, you're just not even in a world that allows that. Like, then you don't have that status, don't have that privilege. And that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. But that's something I think most people want. They want to be able to have the freedom, even if they only get to do it on the weekends, even if they only get to do it when they get off at work at 5 o'clock and drive an hour back to wherever they're living because traffic in their city sucks. Then they get home and they're just like, I'm going to work on that song.
Yeah.
It's like, as opposed to going to a second job. My grandfather he had a day job and an evening job. Whew. And there was a reason why that guy was grumpy all the time. I loved my grandfather, but that guy was a grumpy guy.
Yeah.
That was a grumpy guy. And dude was being burnt out. And
Absolutely.
Dude was, but he was putting that on himself because that was the time period where he lived in New York in that era. It was like it was just all about how much money he could bring into the house. Mm. And now people are actually realizing that money doesn't make everything better. Like the quality of life improves if you're able to like do something you love.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. That was beautiful. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. We're still just chatting about whatever comes up. And right before I record, we were talking about the pivot yet again. Just like being in a space and then trying to do something else, whether it's for your benefit or someone asks you to do something, and people just not being okay with it. And you had a pretty big pivot recently. You went back to a lot of producing, like you've been producing since you've been here. Mm-hmm. But going back to that being your primary role, what's been the joy you found going back to producing mainly?
Well, so we started talking about like one of the things that got me to Nashville in the first place. Uh-huh. I made that EP, that terrible EP, my first EP. It was a burning coal that I collected that made me want to continue to do this.
Yeah.
So looking at it from that vantage, like how interesting. Like, hey, I'm moving back into doing what I came here to do.
Yeah.
And that has been insanely awesome to just sort of sit back and be like, hey, this is a big blessing.
Yeah.
When I first so prior to this, I was working at a label for 2 years. I worked at a team, and I worked under a mentor who, when I tell you, like, at least once a week, things that he said to me while we were working together comes to my mind. Like things about just how a thing he used to say all the time. Context. My old boss Don passed away in January, Martin Luther King Day, during this ice storm that we had in Nashville, and where all of us were like, I don't know if he's doing great. Like we were all trying to figure out if we can go see him, and there was this massive ice storm, and we're like, oh, I guess we're all stuck in our houses, and he passed away that morning. And I remember being like, stuck. Like I couldn't go see him one last time. But I remember, like, since then, he's just stuff he's like used to say to me all the time comes to my mind. One of them was, the best writers are the best rewriters.
That's good.
And every single I like hear it in my head, like whenever I listen to a song that I wrote, that I'm like, yeah, it's not a great song. And then I hear him say, like, the best writers are the best rewriters. And it makes me go, I should freaking go back and rework and workshop it.
Yeah.
He made me do that a couple times. He made me take a lyric that I wrote with a whole track and a whole melody, and he said, scrap all of it. If you were to read this lyric sheet and what music comes to your mind and what melody comes to your mind when you're reading it, like, and I made a whole different thing. Still didn't get cut, but it was a better song.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's something.
Well, but hey, it actually could get cut. It was a good song. Shout out to Yvette Luna and Carl Carty. And they know because they were also dealing with my energy of like, okay, we're reworking this. And the text threads and the voice memos they're sending each other of like, what if we did this? What if we did this? Like, that was a burning coal moment, actually.
Yeah.
It's just like recognizing that ideas you had that weren't that great could be reworked to be something better. Like, it doesn't have to, no idea that you have has to stay and be like, well, that was my idea and either it was good or it was bad. Like, you can change things and bring things back and realize that you were actually onto something. You were just, the compass was a little off. Like, move it a little bit this way. Or like, hey, like that was a wild idea. What if we do something even crazier and take it this way? And it turns into something great. I mean, you in your, well, we've talked about how you've done that exact thing. Where like taking songs in a direction and being like, what if we tried this? Like, like there's really no bad ideas. There's just a journey of like a journey of just figuring out when it's right. And Sting used to say, like music is never ever done. You either just run out of time or run out of money.
That's good.
Like, it's got to come out. You're like, okay. Or you run out of money. Can't spend any more money on this. That's it. It is what it is. And I think that's awesome because it forces you to just go, okay, this is what I did, and move on. And sometimes, and not everything, like some people have more time than they realize. Like, hey, I have more time to work out this song than I thought I did. So I'm going to use it. But yeah, there can be moments of joy found in reworking an old idea. But that was a whole sidetrack about things that my old boss used to say.
Yeah.
And but Don was a great guy, and I really loved working with him by the time I did, and I helped him run that department and facilitate all the things that he was doing in the last 2 years of his life. And I look back at that experience being like, wow, I am so thankful that I was able to do that for him, because what if he didn't have somebody? Like, what if he had to do that all alone? Like, there would have been a lot of fires not put out because he had to go to a chemo operation and or a radiation thing, and someone had to step in and do it. And for that time, I was that guy, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
But it allowed me to have a different lens on what I do, because I actually had to take off my, like, oh, I want to produce records, but right now I'm not producing those records. I'm going to work with other producers and actually taught me a lot about how producers, how well an A&R or a label producer relationship could be.
Yeah.
And then also how, like, what to look, how to help do that better, because sometimes they weren't ever done great. Like sometimes producers make things really difficult, and you just don't know until you know you've gone through it. But most of really, like, what's funny is all the people that I worked with while I was at Red Street, like, were really great producers that I was like, dang, I could learn from that.
Yeah.
And so I look at that and I'm super thankful for it. And so I'm able to take that into this next season where I had to go back and I actually get to make some music again. And I just say to anybody who's going through a season where they're like, oh, I'm doing a different thing now. Like, don't feel the pressure. Don't feel like you have to convince everybody why you shifted. Like, you can just say, hey, this is what I'm doing now. Like, well, why aren't you doing this before? It's like, because right now this makes the most sense to me. That's all you got to, like, hey, right now this is the best thing I could be doing. Yeah. Right now, this is what I've got. I would say, like, hey, dude, right now this is what I'm doing and I'm really excited about it. That's it. I used to play a lot. I mean, I used to tour playing drums. I used to tour doing for multiple country artists and Christian artists. And when I got the A&R job, someone told me, they're like, man, you're an A&R now? Dang it, you were such a good drummer. And immediately I was like, no. Jeez. And I was like, well, hey man, this is what I'm doing right now. And I'm loving it.
That's a great response.
And but yeah, like kind of what you were saying before, like, man, where there's people who are like, they don't like the change. They liked you doing a certain thing. And maybe for some people you can still be that guy. I mean, not everybody has that luxury. Some people have, exclusivity deals and whatnot, but like, if you were this type of person to that guy and you're still able to do that, then fine. But like, you at least tell them like, hey, but I'm also doing this now. But like, I'm not going to argue with somebody, like, if they got a promotion.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I thought you were the assistant. You made a really great assistant. You're the manager now? Shucks, you're a great assistant. Like, no one ever does that. Yeah. But when you make like a pivot to like something where somebody could potentially see that as, oh, that's not as good. That's a whole nother thing. Like, but that's so normal. Yeah. Like, some people go to being session players and then they move to being producers, or they move to being producers and going on the road, or they're doing a whole bunch of things, because in this day and age, like, you just got, if you're alive and breathing, you could be working and making some money at this point. No. And so you're like, if you're awake, you're like, I might as well be making money. And how can I do that? I can do this. I do a little bit of this during the day, a little bit of this, and then I do this. And it's like, people have seasons where it's like, no, I don't do as much of that anymore. I'm now doing this. That should tell you, like, hey, well, maybe the thing they're doing now is better for them, as opposed to you feeling like you have to tell it, like, hey, just FYI, like, have you considered that was a bad decision? Yes, they have. They've already thought about it.
They've way overanalyzed it.
You believe me, they're a creative, like, if they're a creative person, they've lost hours of sleep over it already. So don't make it worse by being like, hey man, like, have you thought about not doing that? I was asked that. Have you thought about not doing that?
Have you thought about
not doing that? When I stepped away from the label, because it just didn't make sense anymore. Yeah. The team had gone through transitions. Dawn not being there anymore was a transition enough. And when I moved out of the label, I had a couple people being like, so are you going to back in? Are you you're going to go to another label, right? I'm like, what if I say no? Are they going to think of me differently? I had those thoughts. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm still working through that. Yeah. They're like, oh, really? Oh, okay. So there's a question there. Like, yeah, you should be there. What you do while you're awake should be something you consider, like,
Yeah.
because you want it to be something that you know in that season is helpful for your family or for yourself. If you don't have a family, if you're by yourself, like, dude, it's got to be good for you.
Yeah.
Like, at least when I have a family, at least I have to have this, like, well, there's lots of things I could do that's just great for me, but I have to find the thing that's great for me and for my family.
Yes.
Because if it's not great for me, what I learned in this last season when it started becoming less good for me is it in turn got less good for my family.
Yeah.
I regretfully came home a stressed out dad a lot of days. And I think they felt that. And I was too much in my feels to recognize that I was coming home being a stressed dad.
Yeah.
Like, and I actually, like, I learned from my dad, like, not to do that. Like, my dad was really great at coming home and being like being positive, being like, hey, I'm home.
That's great.
Like, I'm home, and like, I'm not going to dump on you all the crap that happened.
Yeah.
All the crappy things people said to me there, because he had lots of people say crappy things to him during the day, and he would never come to me and be like, Kev, like, you know how people treat you? Like, no, he came home and he was just like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to go, what restaurant, where do you want to go to eat? Or what do we want to do? What are you working on? Like, he was immediately became invested in my life. And I remember at least the past couple months dealing with a little bit of grief, which is understandable, but also I was coming home a very stressed dad. And I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
So
what did your dad do?
My dad works in finance, so he
Sick.
manages portfolios, and in that there's a lot of money, and with a lot of money comes a lot of opinions, and a lot of opinions becomes lots of expectations of how people are handling that money, and he just helps people with their investments. And one day somebody would be like, wake up and just be like, just decide, like, you know what, the market sucked today and it's all James's fault. And so I'm gonna fire him and take all my money back and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that makes them feel better somehow, because it's like as if it all had to do with my dad.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you invest in Tesla?
Right. Yeah.
Like, when you should have been you should have had a crystal ball. Where's your crystal ball? You don't have one? I can't trust you. Like, I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
Like, we dealt with it in A&R. Like, why couldn't you be able to see that was a hit? Like, we passed on that. Like, we literally passed on that artist. It's like, none of us know.
Yeah.
None of us know. And then, like, who do we want to be after hearing that stuff? Like, go home and be like, oh, you can believe this friggin' manager just, my GM just ripped me a new butthole.
Yeah.
And, and then let it just kill my day? Or do I want to be like, do I want to come home and be that, like, hey, I'm so excited to be home. I'm glad to be home.
Yeah.
Like, but then also turn around and be like, and then I'm excited to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's hard. That's a very hard thing to do.
Absolutely.
I did not do it perfectly.
And that's okay.
And no, I don't think anybody does it perfectly.
Yeah.
But, like, I definitely look back at that season where I was like, oh, like, I could have been better at that. Could have been better at that.
But I think catching it now, before, like, your kids are incredibly conscious of, like, oh, dad's coming home stressed, or like, we got to avoid dad, I'm sure it was a rough day, is good. To be like, oh, okay, whoa. Like, I'm coming home stressed. Like, that shouldn't be the case. Like, I want to be at my best. My kids when I get home. Good for you catching it now.
I think in a weird way, I'm like, my son's 2, but I actually think he's more aware than I give him credit for, because he understands emotions. He may not be able to communicate those. He may not be able to handle them, but he knows. He knows when I'm not happy. Like, but as a kid, he doesn't know how to respond when I'm not happy. And this is where he starts learning what to do when dad comes home mad. Like, and that's actually if you think about that, that's actually a critical time. So I'm like, if anything, like, I'm glad I caught it now, and I'm like, I'm very glad I caught it now.
Yeah.
Because I need to come home like from any session, any whatever, recognizing that like I need to be a good representation, not like come home mad and teaching my son like, oh, stay away from dad when he's mad, or oh, dad's mad, so like that's just what adults do. They go to work and they come home mad. What does that tell my son? That man, life sucks and job sucks. I don't want a job.
Yeah.
My dad comes home mad every day.
Or like I've got to put on a face now as the kid and heal my dad from his tough day. Like that's not your job.
That's not his job.
Yeah.
Not his job. But like, man, I mean, like, I mean, there's a lot of mental games we play in what we do. And so that's why like learning how to trying to learn how to see every single situation from a positive angle is just the best medicine. And then and also letting a lot of it up to be the fact that like so much is not in our control.
Yeah.
Like how that artist freaking, how did we miss that guy? Like we should have caught him months before he signed to major label. Like there's just, hey, I can't see everything. We can't see everything. Or like, how do we not hear that song? How do we can't hear everything? Yeah. Like I only got 2 ears and so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
So, or how did I not think of that? Like now I'm moving back to creating music. Like, how did I not think of that hook?
Ooh.
How did I not? Oh, I can't believe they wrote a freaking great song. Like, why couldn't I do that? Yeah. Like, why didn't I write that great song? Like, because I didn't. So, because
it's kind of as simple as that.
Because I didn't. They did, and I'm just showing up every day trying to do the best I can do and try to serve people the best way I can serve people.
Yeah.
There's also a pivot thing that I've realized is that if anything's, no matter what I've been doing, I may be pivoting from making music to touring to producing to working in a label back to producing. The entire time, one thing has not changed is I'm serving people.
Ooh, that's good, baby.
Is I'm in a position to help make other people's lives better. And as long as I don't forget that, then I'm at least doing half of my job.
I feel like a lot of people forget that. And it's probably most seen in artists, like, because they're the one with the biggest platform and all that stuff. But like, you are serving other people. If you're like just a player on the road or you're a producer, you're serving the artist. If you're the artist, you're serving the people you're performing to or putting out music to. Like, it's not all about you.
No.
And I think that's a misconception that maybe regular people don't understand. It's like, oh, well, surely their life is amazing. But like, no, like they're sacrificing so much.
They're sacrificing a lot.
Yeah.
And the inferiority complex that people deal with, like we were talking about before, is, I think that's the main killer that's the main distraction of the reality of like what we're doing. It's not about us.
Ooh.
But once we if we buy the light, like, oh my gosh, it's actually about my performance and how I do, and it's about beating that guy and being better than that person, then it is about you. But that's when people forget, and I think that's like, how am I doing my job? Like, am I doing my job as good as that other person? Well, then I can go to sleep at night. Because it's like, no, like, are you making people's lives better? Are you, like, is what you're doing bringing joy to other people's lives and to you? Like, do you wake up in the morning and realize, like, hey man, like, I love getting to do this. Like, and does it help people? Like, and does it make somebody's life better? Like, do you ever go back to like the moment where you realized like music changed your life?
I feel like it's happened a few times. Yes, I do. Like, people ask, like, what are some of your favorite records? And usually those ones are the ones that have changed my life.
Yeah.
What
those desert island records.
Yes, absolutely.
What is it? What's your desert island record?
It's hard to choose one.
3.
Okay. Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh.
Madion, his first record, Adventure, the deluxe version. And I gotta shake it up a little bit for number 3. I gotta go with some gospel. So I'm gonna go with Deidre Cadden, 7 Days.
Okay.
Those 3 records.
Come on.
Like, changed my life in regards to music in different ways. So like, 7 Days came out in 2006. I was a young boy. I was 10. and my uncle had the record. He was like always hip to new gospel stuff, and he was playing this in his car, and I was like, "What is this?
Oh, come
This
on.
is insane!" Because like it was so gospel lyrically, but so R&B in the production, and like I found out later, like, oh, it's R&B producers doing it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And like that was the first record I ever bought for CD, and I played the crap out of it, and like it basically taught me how to sing, and I still can't sing some of those runs because Diedrich is ridiculous. Michael Jackson, I came to be a fan of his after he died. So like my parents played some of his stuff, but it never like fully connected with me until I found it on my own.
Ain't that real?
Yeah. Crazy.
Sometimes that happens. I was one of my desert island records is Continuum, John Mayer.
Amazing record.
But when I was introduced to him by a friend who was like, "Oh, have you heard this song?" And I didn't like his song.
Interesting.
And it was a song called "Say,"
Mm.
and it was just when you're a John Mayer fan, and somebody was like, "Say's the like that song, like that's the first John Mayer song you ever heard." You didn't hear Neon or
which is great.
Hey, Why Georgia or Gravity, like
all good things.
Like it's actually kind of funny. Like I think like this person was like, "Oh, I love this song," and I remember being like, "Well, I'm not a big fan," and so then you just go, "I'm not a fan of John Mayer," and then you discover him for yourself, and you're like, "Wait a minute,
exactly, bro.
What?"
Yeah.
And that's definitely a white guy thing to say, I guess, John Mayer. But man, when I saw that live, and it was the live video that did it. It was the live Where the Light Is that I was like, oh.
Phenomenal record.
And then I went back to the studio records, and then I was like, holy cow.
Wow, okay.
Like they made some great music.
Yeah.
And then learning that record was basically made like in it, like just with a few people. Like a few key people. Like it wasn't just like we call all the best players in town in New York.
Yeah.
Like it was just a few people, and that made that record, and it was really special. And then hearing that they delivered that record, and the label's like, "There's no hits on this record." Like, no.
Frickin'
Go back and
labels.
listen again. Go back and listen again, and just. You're going to need to discover for it. It's kind of funny. Like everybody kind of needs to just discover something. There's a moment where something hits you and you're like, I get it.
Yes.
I get it.
Human Nature on that record was one for me, which is like, there are multiple hits on that record.
Yeah,
Human Nature is not one of them. But I loved it. And like, wow, like what they're doing with the sounds here. And like Michael's performance is just like so tender and different. I was just like, this is unbelievable. And this is from the 80s? Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's what sold me on that record. It's still my favorite record to this day.
Listening back to like hearing interviews about some of the players playing on that record and how they fought to fight the right sounds for that, like the right synth sounds for the key, for like the synth bass or like the right guitar parts. Like, oh man, like when this guy brought in like his tone, his sound to this record, it became a rock record. It was an R&B pop record. And then you bring in Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
And it's just like, now it's like, oh my gosh.
Such a good
like,
solo.
But it's funny though. Like I actually like, I was like, when hearing them talk about it made me want to go back and listen to that record. And I already liked it. My parents liked that record, but I liked it more when I felt like the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making it just right. And Quincy is a genius when it comes to like,
yeah, dude,
like finding the things that need to be there, and that's it. Like there's no fluff in that record. Like everything that's on that record is like it deserves to be there.
Yeah.
That's a big thing I think of when I hear Michael Jackson and Quincy work, is that they don't know, they just had a thing with like every single element in the songs was there on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's just like, and they were probably thinking to themselves, like, they're just trying to get it right. They're just trying to be perfection. And I'm hearing it like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's how it, and that's it. What they did making that record, making my life better, is exactly what we get to do with people listening to the records that we work on.
Yeah.
And we will never know it. We will never know
One small decision we make could be that thing for someone like, oh my God, they put this here, or they kept this thing, or it's a throwback to this. Like,
we'll never know. We'll never know. Or we might know. We might hear one person's stories, another person's stories. But most of the time, we're never going to be with them when they have that moment. I mean, we kind of want to be with radio when they have that moment. Like, we want radio, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be in that moment because they know they're being sold something.
Absolutely.
And music hits better when it's not being sold to you, or at least when it's being sold to you in a sneaky way. Like, it's like when you feel like you discovered it on your own, not because he was like, hey, listen to this amazing song we want. Like, hey, like, add our song.
Yeah.
Like, or hey, check out this song. I'd love if you cut this song. Like, ain't this song pretty great?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm being sold something.
Yeah.
And, but then like the music we love the most, we just discovered it one day, or somebody played it, and it was a very like zero like purpose, or not purpose, but like zero like expectations. Just like all of a sudden it was playing, you're like that's, I mean, those are golden moments.
Yeah.
Those are golden moments. And you just hope that the music we work on finds people and has those golden moments, because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. There's something I like to say, you can't buy belief.
Can't buy it.
And usually I say that in regards to believing in an artist or a song or something. Like, I could love it, the artist could love it, but like maybe even our own marketing team doesn't love it. Like, I can't like conjure up something to convince them, for them to be like, oh, I fully get it the way you do now. They just have to find it for themselves.
It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Especially if you tell them like listen to this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
If somebody came to me and said, I'm going to play you this amazing song, you know what I start doing? Start going, let's see how many.
Yeah, we're going to put the walls up right now.
It's
got to break through this.
Well, imagine, and you're like, what weird way to listen to music.
Right.
But it's just what we have to do when you're in a business.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, repetition and familiarity breeds contempt with what we do so often. And like,
good.
Could you imagine if every listener who has a Spotify account, like any single time they go and play a song, they act like the way we do when they're like, okay, let's see how good this is. Spotify, press play. Like, you mean like people just aren't, they're not, that's not how they're listening to music. They're listening to music and they're just hoping that something doesn't like jar them uncomfortably, or like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, that happened to me the other day. I listened to a song, was totally not thinking much of it, and all of a sudden I was just like, I don't like that.
Huh.
I don't like it. I didn't like the somebody put in so much high end in the vocal that it just sounded a little ear piercing to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I have that freedom. Just go, nah, next.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. And they'll never know. I'm not gonna say who it was.
Yeah, for sure.
But
that's kind of how I feel about, and I'm dating this by now, but like Espresso, Sabrina Carpenter. I'm the only person alive who doesn't love that song.
Really?
And it's because the lyric for me just, to me, it feels like it's trying a little too hard to be cool and clever. Like, there's, in popular music, there's a line of like corny and clever.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a little too much on the corny side. To everyone else in the entire universe, they're obsessed with it. And like, I love the feeling it gives. Her performance is great. Track is amazing. But like, just this one last thing, the lyric for me, just, I don't like it.
Yeah. Man, I do love that song.
I'm sorry.
But you want to know what I love?
I'm sorry, everyone.
You want to know what I love more than that song? Is the Mark Ronson remix of it.
I gotta hear it.
Oh, it's cool.
I love Mark.
It's cool. You kind of forgot it. Yeah, I mean, like you know, it's like, oh, it's that song, but it's faster and funkier. And now when I go back to the original version, I'm like, oh no, it's slower.
Okay, I gotta hear it.
So
maybe you should listen to it right now while we take a quick break.
Go check it out.
Welcome back. We're about to get into the questions, but before we do that, we wanted to finish the Desert Island album conversation. I can finish my last one, Madeon Adventure. This record came out in 2015. That's when I found it, and it's an EDM record And I was just starting to get into EDM in those couple years. And good Lord, this this was so creative, and it unlocked something in me I didn't know was there. Like I was making music with my friend Jonathan, and like he was the main writer and artist, and like I enjoyed hanging and doing the stuff I was doing. But this just unlocked a second level. Like, wow, people can be this creative. This is insane. And by that time, I was already feeling like, I don't know if I want to like be an artist. Like, that sounds like a lot, but
It is a lot. I made the same choice.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be. I don't think I want to be that.
Yeah. But like, I heard this and it inspired me so much that I was like, maybe there's like a music industry I could get into. And if there is.
It was that record. You were like,
Yes.
I need to find more about, I need to figure out more about what goes into making this music.
Like if there is an
Wow.
industry, I want to be a part of making music that is like this, that is just so creative and imaginative and can bring people, that can change people's lives, whether they know it or not. That record changed my life.
Golden moment.
So beautiful. So yeah, if I had to choose one record, it's probably that one.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, what you got?
All right. So the first, I had mentioned Continuum being one.
Yes.
That one really, when I finally discovered my love for John Mayer, and I went back and listened to that record, and it like made sense. I was like, oh my gosh, I fell in love with just that organic, just you're hearing everything, like just guitar, drums, bass, keys, like everything's there, and you're just hearing people play.
Yeah.
Music is awesome. So I would say second one has got to be Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Interesting.
Now, that one was kind of a record when I look back.
Obviously well before your time.
Well before my time, and it was because my dad loved that record so much. Yeah. And I listened to it so often because whenever I'm driving with my dad, we would listen to whatever he wanted to play.
Yeah.
And he would purposely take long drives in the car. We'd be out and he would want to take a long drive in the car and he would put on the record and we just listened the whole thing in the car. And I loved it because it immediately put music to an experience. Like it was like the perfect in context example of how music should be enjoyed. And it's like driving in a car with somebody else who loves the music just as much as you do, and listening to it from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Like that experience, which I know it's a rare experience now.
Absolutely.
But like I fell in love with that experience and how the songs blended into each other and how you could have crazy high intensity moments mixed with chill calming things. It was like somebody made a record like for a movie, but there's no like it's like the movie is just your life.
Yeah.
And it's just where you're experiencing that record at that time. And for me, most of the time I was listening to that record in the car. And just loved hearing music. I just loved hearing the sounds off that record. This guitar solos. The first time I heard a song like Money with making music with the sounds of cash registers as percussion.
So good.
Like in it's like, whoa, like they purposely did that and like pulled it into the theme of the song and some of the guitar solo tones I had never heard before. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know how to make, like, it was one of those records where I was like, I don't even know how they made this.
Yeah.
And thinking to myself, like, I want to find out how they made that at some point. Didn't realize that like some of those solos sounded the way they did because they were crazy and ran the guitar through the Leslie cabinet.
Oh.
Into like, and like, it's like that was an amplifier for a whole nother instrument, but they plugged the guitar into it. And that's why it sounds so crazy wild and spinning. Sounds like it's spinning around your head. I love that record. And then I would say the third record would probably be it was a Beautiful Mind, that John Bellion record. I think that's that's
Human Condition.
No, The Human Condition.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's what it was. Well,
Finally, someone is on the show and we can talk about John Bellion.
And go figure. I think he mentions like I think he sings like that lyric in this. It's The Human Condition. Yeah, that one. The one with He's the Same, 80s films, All Time Low. I remember there's a song where it's like it ends. It's like The Beautiful Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And for a second I was like, that's the name of his label,
Yeah.
not the name of the record. But that record, I listened to it, and I think my wife remembers me not listening to any other record. She was like, "You're wearing this out." Like I listened to it
person.
from top. Like I wore out that record. I don't know why, but my favorite song on the record is kind of half a song, and it's the outro of "Weight of the World."
Oh,
I don't hold the weight.
Oh man,
it hits you out of left field.
So good.
The moment
it's so New York.
The moment I heard this, like, super hold the weight of the world anymore. Hold the weight.
Oh God, it's so good.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's only so many moments listening to music that you get those like, whoa, just happened. Right. And that was one of them. And so I really like that song, and I like that record. And that was another record where you felt like with Madion. Yeah. And where I was like, I did not know someone could be this creative. Like someone set a new bar.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's my third, because it's just like, where the creativity level, for me, I was like, oh gosh, I thought I knew what creative was. And then I heard this record.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines from that song, Weight of the World, is like, the darker instruments inside my head were playing suicide, but not by choice. And I'm like, oh God, I've never heard anyone say anything remotely close to what that just said, but it has said exactly what I felt in my life. And like you were saying, like, I don't hear that in a lot of songs.
And like, even when you think of the melody,
it's so sweet.
Choice, choice.
Oh,
it's like
so sweet and so grand. But like, wait, what is he saying?
Like, it's so like that record is so theatrical.
Yes,
like you really do. Like I really do wish that there was like a Cirque du Soleil production with that record.
Yeah,
like just people like jumping all over the place and like doing these crazy stunts, and it deserves, like, if Cirque du Soleil there was like an animation version of Cirque du Soleil made by Disney.
Yes.
And then John Bellion was like the main character.
That would be so
that's what I envisioned. Like I just envisioned just like stuff flying out of nowhere, like trapeze artists just like jumping and doing flips and stuff. And then all of a sudden, and then like lights, and I don't know. That's what I hear. That's what I see when I hear that record. Like
and the last song on that record, like being an amalgamation of all the songs in the record.
That was pretty fun.
God, I still get chills.
Oh, that's in the hand of God.
Oh man, it is so excellent.
And then,
if you haven't heard this record, please, for the love of God, go listen to it top to bottom.
Yeah, that's a great one. It's like, that's another one that I like. I really do love. I love going from top to bottom.
Me too.
And Guillotine's probably my second favorite.
God,
that's
the groove on that is like, your head can't help but nod.
And my drumming first brain that was like, have spent my entire life playing perfectly to a click, was challenged so hard when I heard this guy purposely playing sloppy.
Yes.
And somehow making it.
Yes.
And what I learned from that record is that rhythm is just the recognition of repetition.
Ooh.
And you could have this like, and it could be so wacky.
Yeah.
But the fact that it, like, there's a rhythm to it, and then you recognize it, that's when you're like, oh wait, I can feel it, because you know when it's coming. It's not jarring you.
Yeah.
But it can be a little sloppy, and as long as it was like perfectly craftfully and purposely done and creatively done, like, I was like, oh shoot, like
Yeah.
I never ever thought to actually play that on a drum set like that. And then and I remember the first time I tried and I was like, this is so weird. My muscles don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's like so behind and off the beat.
Yeah.
But like it's created its own pocket that's perfect somehow. It's just like, good God. Like, what's wrong with my neck?
What's wrong with my neck?
Why am I moving like this? But you just can't help it.
I'm making stank faces I've never made before.
Yeah. Oh, what's a great pick. That might be my number 4. Jeez.
Dude.
Great record.
Well, there we go. I mean, hope you don't get trapped on a desert. But if you do, I hope you have those 3 records.
That would be helpful.
With you. But you might not have a record player, though. So then.
I did consider that.
I'm like.
Maybe it's just like playing in the air somehow, and you get to choose 3 records. Someone has trapped you here, and somehow they're broadcasting audio, but they're not helping you in any other way.
Okay. So it's like you're stuck on a desert island, and your phone only has 3 records that you could download to where, like, if you have absolutely no service, you could still listen to music.
Yes.
Like. Yeah. Kind of like,
and your battery lasts forever.
Somehow. And your battery somehow lasts forever.
Solar powered.
Or it doesn't. You only have a few hours.
You're like, that's dangerous.
You only have, you're like, hey, if I'm gonna listen to some music, I only have 8 hours of battery life on this phone. What albums am I gonna listen to?
You might have unlocked something even more dangerous than like the Desert Island record question. What's the last song you would ever want to hear?
Oh,
because I do have an answer for that, and it's not on any of these 3 records. For me, it's Spectrum by Zed, another EDM song.
Whoa.
Another one that like changed the way I thought about
the
music.
last song I ever want to listen to. Dude.
Just the progression on that song is ridiculous. The performance by the singer Matthew Coma is so incredible. Oh man, but yeah, that could be the last song I ever hear, and I'd be happy.
I don't know. That's hard.
It's really hard.
That's kind of like a strangely morbid idea.
It is.
Like, what's the last song you ever want to hear before you just silences the rest of your life, or before you die? Oh man.
I mean, you don't have to have the answer. It's just a terrible thought.
Off the top of my head, the last song I want to hear this is my answer right now, but is Death and All of His Friends. By Coldplay. Interesting. No, I don't want to battle from beginning to end. Don't want to don't want to follow death and all of his friends. It just feels like
a good pick.
I mean, it's also funny because it's in a weird way. I had to pick a song that was the last song on the record. Go figure. Right. That's me. I had to pick. I had to pick. If I'm like, if this is going to be the last song, I have to have some sort of cathartic. It has to be a song that has some sort of catharsis.
Yeah.
Part of it. It's the last song of the record. Like, it couldn't be an intro song. It has to be like, I don't know.
That's interesting.
Classic me. Classic me.
Good pick. Okay, we're gonna move on to question 1. Finally, good Lord. We might not be able to make it through the first 3 before I have to take another break, but
we can do it.
We'll see what happens.
Let's try it.
Number 1, do you remember when we first met and what you thought about me?
We met. Didn't we technically get introduced by Nathan Gamble?
Did we?
I think Nathan Gamble, not Jonathan Gamble. I think Nathan Gamble. Man, I feel
maybe.
I think so. I think
if so. Shout out Nathan.
Shout out Nathan.
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
I think he texted me. He's like, "Have you met Steven?" And I was like, "I haven't yet."
Interesting.
And then we hung out. Didn't we hang out?
We went to Crema.
We went to Crema.
We went to one today.
But oh, that's right. Yeah. But that's when we got to. That was not the first time we met, or was it?
It was.
Oh, because when I saw you then afterwards at CMB. It was Crema.
Yeah.
Dude, when I met you, I just remember thinking like, dude, what a very like peaceful person.
Whoa.
I'm serious. Like I was like, I'm like, this guy is like I can hang with this guy. That's what I felt. I was like, this is a peaceful guy.
I felt the same way because we met at Crema. We talked for maybe an hour and a half, and this was downtown Nashville. And you worked in downtown Nashville. And you're like, yo, like, I've got time. You want to come to our offices? Because I'd never been there.
That's right. That was the same day.
And it was at Starstruck. And I'd never been to Starstruck, like basically the house that Reaper built. And just like walking through, you're giving me a grand tour, introducing me to people at the label. And I was like, man, this guy is awesome. Like his hospitality is great. I also felt like, man, this dude's super chill. I could hang with him, no problem. Like, this is great. I really like this guy.
Dude, well, I'm honored. There we go. I mean, so right back at you, bro.
Thank you.
Right back at you.
Ah, that's great. Okay, yeah, we're gonna need to move through these. Question 2: how do you feel about our relationship now?
Oh, dude, I just like that I love that there are those like, I like that there's moments where you're like, hey, like friend question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, friend question, not business question.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, like, business question, or like, there's that, like, we're very comfortable telling each other which hat we're wearing.
That's good. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because that's like, I feel like that's a very, actually, in an interesting way, that's actually one of the best things that I like about people that are very forward with like, hey, this is where I'm coming from when I ask this, or this is where I'm coming from when I'm hitting you up. Sometimes people hit you up and you're like,
Yes.
why are you asking me?
Yes.
Or like, are you asking because like you're desperate for somebody and you're like, oh, do you, like, you're my last call, or like,
Right.
are you asking because
And
like,
I can feel that.
like, are you asking me because like I'm your first call?
Yeah.
Or are you asking me because you just want some intel from me? Like, wait, what do you think about this guy? I'm like, are you asking me for my opinion, or are you asking me to check to see if I know more or less than you do?
Yeah.
Dude, that's a real A&R. That's real A&R world. Like, hey, what do you think of this guy?
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, oh, I don't know that guy. You're like, yes.
Right.
You're
bro.
like, hey, I got some. You're like, man, I had the scoop.
I got some time.
Oh man, I got some time. I'm still chill. I got it. As opposed to like, hey, what do you think of it? Oh man, I met with him, and you're like, oh.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, dude, that's just real life. That's just real. But you're also like, you're very good with the like, hey, friend question.
Yeah.
Or it's like, or you call me and be like, man, I just want to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
At that time you called me and you're like, man, how you doing? I'm like, is he asking me to figure out like something? Like, am I like figure out something? Like, what is he? No, like, that was really like, genuinely, I really appreciate that.
No problem, man. I feel like people can feel this. I have never felt this way because I'm not an incredibly competitive person. But I've only known you as an A&R person at a different record label than the one that I work at until now, until very recently.
So now you like me more or less?
Well, no, a lot less, obviously. No, but
man, so much less now. Just respect just plummeted.
Yeah, but like, I like want to get to know all the A&R people, just like show face and like, hey, like, we do the same thing. I'm just at a different place. I'd like to get to know you and see who you are and where you're coming from, and be a shoulder, like, when someone who understands what you're going through. If you're going through something hard, I can be here to listen and maybe offer some guidance.
It was one of my favorite things about the crew of guys that worked in this town. They're very great about being like, of recognizing like, hey, we all do the same thing.
Yes.
We all get it. That's actually,
yes.
I don't know if other cities are like that.
I don't either.
But particularly Christian music, the circle of people in town in Nashville, like, there's a little bit of that, hey man, like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, you get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. And there's like, oh yeah.
Uh-huh. But like, there still can be this air of competition. Like, oh, I can't tell you everything. Then you'll go and see whatever, blah, blah, blah. I've never cared that much. And hopefully you didn't feel that with me. Like, I feel like every time we met, it was just like, how are you doing? Let's catch up. Like, what are you going through? Like, I don't need all the details, like who you're looking at in case you want to keep stuff close to the vest. But like, I'm just interested in you as a person.
Oh, for real. No, I had the same way. I felt the same way also, because like, not only were we A&R on teams, but like also like we were both working for other people. We were both in positions where we're learning. We're both in positions where like the people that are on our team are slowly but surely like trusting us more.
Yes.
And dealing with that very interesting position and season where trust is being earned and developed, is a very stressful season. And so I actually saw you as like somebody I'm like, oh, this guy's going through it with me at the same time. And like this dude knows, and like I can have respect for this guy, because if I'm going through this, he's going through this.
Yes.
And therefore I see like, you know what I mean? Then there's that like, man, I know what you're having to do. And I know the mental games and the mental, emotional strength, intellectual, like you got to be sharp.
Yeah.
You got to be on top of it. You got to be present. You got to be, and you got to be emotionally stable. Like that's all, and professional and fun. And you got to be all the things to everybody
At all times.
And I'm like, man, this guy's doing it. And I'm like, he knows. So I can be friends with this guy, as opposed to somebody who like has no idea what I do, has no idea, and cares not about how I do it. And you're like, that's why I like. But what's also funny is, it's also funny about the competition thing. I am a very competitive person.
Yeah.
But here's what I learned about the whole like thing like that you mentioned. There was one project, or there was one artist I was chasing, and at the time I felt like it was like if I didn't get it, it was my fault. Like as if I was fully in control of it. What I learned is like, dude, I don't sign the paper.
Yeah.
Like this dude signs the paper.
Yeah.
Like he signs the paper with my company.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like, so it was kind of funny. I was like I had heard where I was chasing this guy, and I had learned that he was with a couple other labels. He was talking to all the people, and someone on my team said, well, if he was really talking to those other labels, they'd have him already.
Mm.
And I had a moment where I was like, that's not true. That's basically telling me you're assuming that this artist is not in control of his life. He makes the decision. Like we can make all the offers.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's that guy's decision. Like we don't have to make that decision. Like what if he doesn't like that other label? Like, and his reaction to that was, he wants a deal. If they gave him a deal, he'd take it.
Yeah.
Like, would he have? Listen, we're in a different world. It's not the 90s anymore. Like,
yeah.
Like I don't have people lined up the door. Like, give me a record deal, please. Like I have people asking, like, man, I'd love that. But like, there's not like people knocking on my door, like with asking, like, please listen to my dog, like a deal. Like, the internet has made it very obvious that getting a record deal is not success.
Preach.
It's a step in it's a step in a direction. It's a great thing. It's something to be celebrated. It's something to be like, oh shoot, like congratulations, you got a deal. Like that's great, but it's not, that's the starting line.
Yeah.
And I think back when social media wasn't much of a thing, it was a thing that was more glorified than it is now.
Yeah.
Now everybody on Instagram is like, oh, freaking label, I signed a bad deal. Labels don't like them. And I'm like, and I can
And that still happens.
Oh, I can see those posts and I hate them because I'm like, y'all don't respect what that team is actually doing. Mm-hmm. Like if you sat in every single person's office and saw what they did every day, you would have so much respect. They would. But at the same time, like just because it didn't work for you doesn't mean that you like you weren't good enough. Like it just it's like
Ooh.
Like it just meant it wasn't the right thing, wasn't the right fit.
And like that's a good word for artists and the people who work on the industry side. Like things just don't work sometimes, and it's not your fault.
Yeah, because like somebody asked me at one point, like, what makes an artist truly ready? And I always ask, ready for what? They're like, well, we're like ready for a deal. I'm like, well, when you can convince a CFO to allocate money to create music that can like you can make an argument that it can be commercially viable and make a ton more and be like a really great investment.
Yeah, like
that's when you're ready.
No one wants to hear that.
And what I just said has nothing to do with what they sing about.
Exactly.
What they're like, how they're making people's. It's just like, can you convince somebody to make an investment, like, and think that it's going to be a good one?
Yeah.
That's when they're ready. That's it. It's like, like, why aren't they like, it's just like, I don't know. I'm just confused why nobody likes my music. It's like, because for some reason they just can't see the dots connecting.
Yeah.
And that's not your fault.
Yeah.
That's not, well, I mean, it's on you because it's your art, but like, that's not like, that doesn't mean something's broken, something's not working.
Yeah.
Or something like you're not doing something right. It's just like, hey, you're doing it that way. And at this current time, like somebody does not see A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
So that's just it's that simple. It's like, if we sign this person, make some money, put the music out, will people listen to it a ton?
And someone else could see the vision. Or maybe that same place could see the vision 2 years later. Like, it's just.
Yeah, 100%. And so, but like, I definitely liked knowing like prospective artists that nobody knew about. Like, I liked it. I wasn't going to tell like, hey man, have you heard this artist? Like,
yes.
I will say one time I did purposely make some noise.
Interesting.
Because I did want to know that there was one time I did want to know people were looking at the artist I was talking to, and it caused people to show up to showcase.
Interesting.
That's what I wanted. I wanted the label I wanted multiple labels to show up for that showcase. And it happened.
That's nice. Okay.
But we still didn't sign the artist.
Sure, whatever.
But there was one time I was like, well, I do want other labels there.
Yeah.
And because then it was this weird thing that I dealt with where it was like, well, if all these labels, we only want artists that all the labels are chasing. Because we want the artists that everybody wants.
Yeah.
But if everybody wants them, we're not going to get them because we don't have the money. We can't outbid all these other labels. So we want the artists that everybody wants, but we want to get to them before they all know that they want them.
I know the struggle.
But if everybody knows the artist and is not signing them, we don't want that. Because that means everybody's passed. And it's like,
it's pretty gross.
It's like, no, I know. Like that was the like circle I kept going in and being like, this is my least favorite part of this job.
Right.
I cared about finding out who were going to be my people.
Yeah.
Or who were going to be the people that I had the opportunity to serve while I was at that job. But I mean, that gave me a perspective now going into making music. Now I used to be like, man, like if they don't like it, whatever. Like I kind of had that thing before taking the label job. Like if they didn't like that, that's their problem. Now I'm like, now I kind of have like a problem solving. Like, hey, what would help them see this? Like what could help bridge that gap? If they still don't like it afterward, that's fine. But like, what can I do to help connect the dots?
I love that.
And I didn't have that before. I actually didn't. Like I just I had this like, if they don't like it, that's their fault. They're missing it.
Yeah.
And now I have a problem solving. Like, what could I do to help maybe move the needle a little bit, or at least in the ability that I have to do it.
Yeah.
And that is not a musical idea.
Totally.
That is a service idea.
Yep. Service
mindset. That's a team player idea. That's an idea of somebody who is dedicated and it has the like has gone through enough life to realize like, you know what, like I'm going to try my hardest and I have the ability to make a change and let's see what I can do.
Yeah.
And it involves a little bit of risk in there. And I do know, and I'm going to tell my children like to find something, put some effort into it, risk a little bit.
Yeah.
And when you see something move or when something succeeds, capture that feeling.
Yeah.
That feeling like that's the feeling that you feel like, man, I could do anything.
Yeah.
When you're like, man, is this like, can I do this? I'm going to try it. Oh my gosh, it worked. Oh my gosh. Now I can do like, no, that's the gold, like to kind of go back to earlier in the conversation. That's like one of those golden embers that feeling gives you so much joy that's an ember that you can put that'll fuel an engine for years.
Absolutely. Yes.
Being like, hey, I did it once, I could do it.
Whew. On that note, let's take a quick break. We'll be back. Woo. Welcome back. We're going to try and continue with the questions this time. Kevin, how you feeling so far?
I'm feeling great.
Great.
Caffeinated. Great.
Yes. Awesome.
Awesome.
Question 3. How can I be a better friend to you?
Bro, I just was talking about how you've been a great friend. How to be a better friend?
How can I be better?
Dude, there's only been like, I've only been on a handful of podcasts. You're like in the small circle of people who've asked me to be on a podcast.
What other shows have you been on?
I was on The Climb,
Ooh.
which was a songwriting
Yeah.
podcast. That was a lot of fun.
Okay.
But that's the only one. So dude, you're in like the
Top 2.
You're in the top, dude. Like you're in a small group of people who are like, you know what? Like I like this guy enough. I'm gonna invite him on a podcast. That's a friend right there.
Thanks,
dude. I say, dude. I'm not gonna say better.
I'll say it.
But I'm not gonna say better. I'm gonna say, dude, you could just keep doing what you're doing. What like the thing I said before that like the thing I was talking about like always being great with like sharing with where you're coming from, like communication is kindness, clarity is kindness, all that stuff. Like, dude, just keep doing that because that makes you a great friend.
That's good. I'll take that to heart. I think I did try to be very intentional after your exit from your last job because it's what I would want someone to do to me.
Yeah.
Because like I'm sure it was difficult and like you're in a great place now, and I want to talk about people seeing that on you in a second. But still, it's a big change, and it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So like I had to be like, okay, I don't know how much I can offer this guy. I haven't been through what he's been through, but like I got to at least just call him and be like,
yeah,
how you doing?
Bro.
And hopefully it goes a long way.
It does go a long way. Dude. And I think it's being the friend that you want other people to be to you can sometimes be a very lonely. It feel lonely because you're like, why am I always being the friend? Like, why do I always have to be the friend?
And it's hard not to get bitter.
But don't get bitter. Because
trying.
that is one of like that mentality of like, how can I be the friend that I will want somebody to be to me? Like, don't lose that. Do not lose that. Now, how can I be a better friend to you?
Oh man. Why would you ask me that?
Because you asked me that. And I think as a friend, it's only fair for me to ask that back to you.
Sure. Good Lord, I don't know. It's a stupid question.
It's not a stupid question. That's a bold question, not a stupid question.
It's definitely a hard one to ask because like you gotta be ready for the response.
You gotta be ready for you don't think I'm a good enough friend, bro? Could you imagine?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What are you even talking about? I'm like the best friend to you.
Yeah.
I'm like the best friend.
Real answer, I mean, I don't know. Like I definitely wasn't nervous when we grabbed lunch and I asked you to do this because I figured you'd have a lot of great insight. I don't know. I think our friendship is in a good place. I think you're great. Like you're always honest about everything. I appreciate that. You're never putting on airs or anything. Just keep staying honest, I guess.
Dude, I'll keep staying honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is great.
That was great.
That's a great answer too.
Thanks.
Great. Keep being honest.
The last time we grabbed lunch, which was a few days ago.
That's right.
We were both talking about the fact that people have come up to us recently and said like, oh, you look so happy. You look so good. After a big change in both of our lives. For me, it was my divorce, which was last year. For you, like exiting the label and diving back into full production. What is it about people seeing something on you that you don't necessarily see yourself? Like, because for me, it's strange hearing like, oh, because like 2 people have stated in the past month, like, oh, Steven, like you're glowing. They've used that phrase, like you're glowing right now. Like, what's going on?
It's usually a phrase that they reserve for pregnant women.
I know. And one of my responses was, yeah, I'm pregnant.
And my wife is currently pregnant. And I always laugh when people say she's glowing. I'm like,
you never hear that for any other context other than a pregnant woman.
I'm like automated.
What does that say about me?
It's like automated response. Well, at least they use a great phrase for you because you're not pregnant. But for my wife, it's like, it almost feels like automated response. Like, that's what you're
interesting.
supposed to say.
That's interesting.
Like, I want somebody to say, like, wow, like,
you're glistening.
You are like, you just wear pregnancy like you look like the most comfortable pregnant woman ever.
That's cool.
And like somebody said that to her and she was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like, some people, and again, I know that people, especially with pregnancy, people can take a lot of it. Like,
sure.
Like, oh my gosh, you don't even look pregnant. Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm pregnant. Somebody else will hear that and be like, I know, thank you. I know, I don't like being big. It's so like, you have no idea. But the whole, you're glowing. After a couple times, I just said to my wife, I was like, that kind of feels like an automated response. And she was like, yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, for me to hear that phrase, I was like, whoa, I was taken aback.
Dude, I will say, you know what felt like an automated response when I separated from the label was, dude, God's got something so much better for you. He's opening up doors, man. And for the first 3 times that people said that, I was like, man, this feels really great to hear that. It really does. By the 20th, I was like, automated response. This is an automated response. Yes. I live in the Matrix. It's like, you lost your job. Lord's got something better for you. Yeah, really. Like, but it's fun. It's funny because it's like, I know everybody who said it actually means it. Yes. I really felt that. Yeah. I'm not shaming anybody. It's just kind of funny. Life is just funny. But that happened. Yeah. Like, a lot of people were like, they kept saying the phrase, the Lord's got something better for you. And the more I heard it, the more I was like, he better.
I love that.
He better.
That's faith right there, though.
He better. After hearing this freaking 30 times, like, Lord's
everyone else is hearing it. I'm not, but like, so he better, yeah. Jeez.
Like, he's really setting himself up for a grand slam right now. Yeah. And that's just my like dumb humor, I guess. But like, I felt that way. And I started to get more mad and more mad because there was a moment where I was like, well, what is that? What is that going to be? Everybody else seems to have this like undeniable faith that that's going to happen to me. Like, what if I'm not? Yeah. Like, what if worse comes to worse?
Yeah. And yet people recently have told you like, oh my gosh, you look so happy. You look wonderful. Yeah. Do you feel like you've hit a plateau of some sort? Just like you've seen the mountaintop and like, oh yeah, this is the thing I was going for.
No, I think there is something to say about the fact that you got 2 eyes on the front of your face and you can't see yourself. And I can see you and you're not looking at yourself right now. I mean, you can kind of look at yourself through the camera. Like you can, but like I can't look at myself. I can't see. And I think there's just something natural about that. In the fact where I'm like, it's not me focused. Like once I was like, you know what? Like, here's the skills that God has given me. I'm just going to go right into it. These things that are in front of me, I can immediately jump right into. Thank God that there were. Yeah. And some of them were phone calls that I made saying, hey, I'm no longer doing that. And somebody was like, well, if you're not, why don't you jump into this with me? And I was like, whoa, yeah, that sounds exciting. And then there was a little bit of joy that was like wrapped up in that. Like, oh, let's change up what I'm doing. I'm going to do this now. Yeah. Like, I told some people I was not the label anymore. They asked me to write. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And in that session, that first write after the switch, someone was like, dude, you are like, you just seem happy. And I'm like, I am happy. Yeah. And they're like, that's, you should, just park that in the back of your mind. Just like, hey, like the time I hung out with before you kind of seemed really stressed. Yeah. And that was it. It wasn't that I was like unhappy or like I hated life. It's just like I was carrying a ton of stress. That now almost feels like it was not necessary. Yeah. Like unnecessary weights. And so I think there was a lifting of that weight, and I could see uh my situation I was going through and was able to process it from a perspective of positivity and joy.
Yeah.
And it was like somebody literally like, dude, you're not the same dude. Like when I last saw you, and it was somebody who was like, who doesn't live here. Like they flew into town a few weeks ago, had coffee with me, flew back out of town, flew back into town. We wrote, and he was like, dude, you are not the same guy
Wow.
you were when we had crema. Go figure.
Oh,
Crema.
you got to get out of crema.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
I think these comments in this moment, now that we are recording it, this is proof that there is joy on the journey.
100%.
It's like you don't have to have arrived to finally be happy. Like, and even if you don't see it on yourself first, people can see like, oh my gosh, like you're different. Like you're glowing.
Well, there's definitely not. It doesn't feel like I've arrived anywhere.
Exactly.
It just feels like, you know what? Like I'm growing and I'm in a new in a new season, and I have the ability to enjoy that, while at the same time knowing that it's also like it's go time.
Yeah.
Like it is go time.
Yeah.
But that's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. And hopefully look 2 years from now, I can turn around and be like, oh my gosh, like look at the growth that has happened in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait for that.
Yeah. Okay. We can't wait for question 4.
Okay.
Good Lord, it's only 4.
We can do this.
What matters most to you right now?
Matters most. Really, like, truthfully matters most is the fact that I was put on this planet by a creator who is so worthy of all the effort I can, like, every breath, everything I do, like I just want everything I do to matter to God. That's actually what matters most. I actually lose sleep thinking like, am I doing something? Like, am I making the most out of this life? In that regard. And second is my family. Man, my family is everything. So, and then it's like where to the point where I feel joy sacrificing myself, like, so that they can have more, or that they can be taken better. Like, I don't know, it was like Father's Day the other day, and I was just like, I did not feel like I didn't feel like Father's Day. I didn't feel like I got the love. Like I was like, I made a joke to my wife about it later, but I was like, no, my Father's Day was taking care of my family, and we were coming back from out of town, and I was not focused on me.
Yeah,
I was focused on my family, and that gives me a lot of joy. So, and then it's doing everything to better them. Like, I am enjoying doing something that I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm doing something that I think I'm good at and that I love. But that's like the icing on the cake. Like, it has to be like, I am doing this also because my family is the most important, apart from God. And it's in that order because God gave me my family.
Yeah.
And that's how I see the world. That God trusted me with this family. And so I'm doing the best I can for him by taking care of my family the best. And it's a bonus that I get to do something that I love. But that's not the prerequisite to like feeling like my life is complete.
Yeah.
So, but it does make, like, doing something you love improves the quality of life. Like, it actually makes you feel like you have a better life.
Absolutely.
Like, the way people think that money, like, oh, just a ton of money. Like, the more money I have, life is better. Like, you could have more money and have all this whatever, like all this baggage connected with it. Like it's not, it's more about, I think it's more about like, you're in a situation where like you get to, like, their life is great because you get to do what you love with people you love, and those people love you.
Yeah.
Like if you think about that, do what you love with people you love, and those people love you back. That's pretty that's an insane life right there.
That's good.
So, I don't know. I think trying to maintain that matters the most. And I don't know, I said a lot. But
No, I think you said what you needed to say. That was great.
It's weird because I said a lot of things, but all of those are combined into being being the man and the father and the husband for my family and being the best servant I can for my God.
I'm cutting that out. That's good.
Clip it. Clip it.
I'd say for me, right now is my journey of self-discovery, which encompasses a lot of things. I was talking with a friend who also went through a divorce last year around the same time as me. And we're coming up on a year since the papers were signed. And I'm just reflecting on man, I was really forced to find myself. I was in my relationship with my ex-wife. We started dating at 18 for me. And then I was in college, I was in church. There were so many things happening that I put part of myself into other places. And I didn't necessarily, quote unquote, need to figure out who I was in these places because they were already taken care of in the church or in my significant other, blah, blah, blah. Now that I'm out here by myself and my church view has changed, church I'm going to is a different style, I'm on my own, I've got to find out who I am. So I'm doing that in every regard. I'm not leaving any stone unturned. How do I feel spiritually, mentally? How do I take care of myself? What do I like to eat? Where do I like to go? What shows do I want to see? Everything, good and bad. It's just I've been forced on a journey of self-discovery.
You, when you pour yourself out for other people and then those people are no longer around and you feel empty, you're the places where you poured out for somebody else those feels like gaping holes.
Yes.
And you're like, wait a minute, who was I before I did that? And I would feel the exact same way if tomorrow my wife and my son were just not here. I would definitely have a moment where I'd be like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I really wouldn't know what to do because I have built this life with them.
Yeah.
And the goal hopefully is to do what you love with people you love and they love you back. And it's
I've heard that.
And that's with that. Yeah. Where'd you hear 30 seconds ago? But if that's the goal, then when a separation happens, of course it's man, you're dude, that's a tough thing to go through, man. And I really dude, I really want, I'm looking forward to you, finding those things again, rediscovering who you are, and then going, hey, now this is who I am. Now I can do life I can do this life with someone else too.
Yeah.
You 100% deserve that.
Thank you. Jeez. Oh my. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah, really. Question 5. What are you holding on to that's holding you back?
Oh, okay. I am holding on to just sort of patterns of I'm not the best at this. So I need to just remember I'm not that I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And right now in this new season there are a few things that I'm just no, I got to be better at this. I've got to be better at this if I'm going to continue producing. There's certain instruments that I've put aside and been I'm just not that good bass player.
Yeah.
And I've picked that thing up and I've been I am going to freaking lay down a bass part. That's good. And I'm going to freaking do it.
Yeah.
Because the song needs it.
Yeah.
In the past, I've previously been I'm just not going to do it. And I think it's forcing me to be a better creator.
Yeah.
Just looking at like we talked about earlier, like oh, I can't do it because I don't have this stuff. Well, that stuff could also be skills. Like, oh, I can't do
Sure.
that because I'm not good enough at that. Like, do it anyway. You could always replace it.
Yeah.
You can't, someone wise told me you can't mute what you don't hate.
Man, that's interesting.
Can't think about that. You can't mute what you don't hate. Like, if you don't hate it, you can't say, nah, I can do better. Like,
That's good.
if you don't try it, you can't tell yourself, I could do better, or there's a better way of doing this. Like, if you don't at least try it, you can't figure out how to do it better.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that I'm having to pick up realistically have to pick up new instruments that I haven't played in a while, because I really haven't done that much producing in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to pick up instruments that I had literally put down.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm going to use this on this song, and I'm not going to like sit back and be like, I'm going to pay somebody to do it. Like, no, I'm actually going to do it. And yeah, bass is actually one. Bass is funny that there's 2 bass guitars here, but like, I don't know what it is. Bass is just like, and when I was a drummer first, you'd think that if I'm a drummer first, you'd pick up bass next, but I didn't. I picked up guitar next, and then keys, and then I picked up bass. And it's for some reason just the hardest because I'm the most picky about it. Because I've played with so many great bass players that I kept telling myself, like, I'm not freaking this guy. I'm not this guy.
Yeah.
Like, who am I kidding? I'm an imposter.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you have to force yourself to be like, no, I'm not an imposter. Like, I am trying this out, and this is me taking a swing at doing this thing.
Yeah.
Like, taking off the imposter syndrome and be like, no, like I can't do that. I'm like that fake humility thing. It's like, no, you can try it.
Yeah.
See what happens. So I think the whole, like, it's the not great replacement to imposters. Like, the imposter syndrome is like, I'm gonna do it, and while I'm doing it, I'm just gonna like sit back and like judge myself for being like, I know I'm not this person. Like, I can't be this person. But no, like, I'm more like, I'm going to take a stab at this. I'm going to try it. And if I fail at it, then I know what I can get better at.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Does that help?
Absolutely.
Is that a good answer?
It's a great answer. Yeah.
What do you think?
About you?
No.
That's
right. Well, are you holding, you've probably, I don't know. Are you holding, is there anything that that's holding you back right now?
Holding me back might be too strong of a phrase, but
it's a very strong phrase.
Noticed that, like, I'm saying yes to a lot of things, and I need to say no to things more.
Gotta say some big no's.
Yeah, and like, they're fine things to say yes to, just like hangouts or work stuff or whatever. But like, having my yes be yes, my no be no.
Mm-hmm.
I think I need to define those lines more for my own sake of just like having my boundaries and keeping them.
Yeah,
and my sanity. I need to be saying no more.
I had, when I was doing A&R, I had a criteria of like, and sometimes that criteria would change, but I had at least a criteria of being like, hey, if I'm going to go to this thing, will I see this? Will there be this? Will this happen? Will this happen, like, while I'm there? And if I was just going to some random thing on a Saturday night because I felt guilty for not being out as an A&R, like, well, if I'm not out at some club, out of some, like, searching,
then
I'm not doing my job. Like, I'm like, no, if there's nothing happening tonight, then the best thing I could be doing is spending my time with my family.
Absolutely.
But if there is something that, like, truthfully, like, when I look at it, I'm like, no, it would be great for me to be there. Like, then I'm there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the whole, like, I'm just gonna say yes to everything, and just, if there's something happening,
you'll burn out so fast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a good thing to step back and be like, I'm gonna tweak this.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Thank you. Question 6. When was the last time you made yourself proud?
I made myself proud when I reached out to somebody this month. And where I could have just been like, nah, they don't care.
Ooh,
They don't care. They're not going to care.
that's
I
a
reached-
big
I-
hurdle to get over.
Yeah. And I reached out and I sent a text, and I legitimately have started a partnership based off that text.
Yeah.
And I like sat back and was like, what if I didn't do that? Like, if I didn't do that, then this stuff would not be happening. So
Yeah.
like, I was like proud of myself. I was like, you know what? I took the shot. Worst thing somebody could say is no. But at the same, actually, the worst thing kids have is nothing.
Yeah.
I actually prefer no sometimes.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Like, no, I'm great.
A no is great.
Yeah. Worst thing that happens is they can ghost me and pretend I don't exist and
Yeah, wow.
not care. But they responded. They were like, "Hey, actually, let's do some stuff."
Yeah.
That was great. That's a quick answer.
No, that was good. For me,
Yeah.
it's also moderately work related. We turned in the master for a song recently, and I feel like one of the things I'm most insecure about in A&R is my ability to give notes on a mix or a master. Because like I just haven't listened enough. Like I'm arguably still learning the format that I work in. Just like, okay, what will work? What will sound good? And like, I don't have any technical background. Like I never played anything. I was just a singer. Like when I have a thought, I'm like, they're probably gonna think I'm freaking stupid for saying this.
Wow.
But for the most part, I say something like, especially like if it's something I feel like I couldn't live with myself if it comes out and I didn't say anything. And it just feels weird.
Yeah.
If I say something and then everyone's like, no, we don't hear that, I'm cool. Like, okay, I said the thing, I
Yeah.
can live. I can rest easy.
Mhm.
There was a comment, I thought something was a little too bright on a song. No one else heard it. So like, it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. Like, it was kind of, not necessarily the worst case scenario, but like, not the scenario you would think would happen. Like, maybe someone would be like, oh, yeah, I kind of hear that too. Let me check on it just to make sure. But everyone else involved, so like 3 or 4 other people were like, nah, we're not hearing that. And even for me, it was just the confidence of like, okay, yeah, I said something. I'm proud of myself for saying something instead of just letting it go. Like, okay, everyone else feels like it's good. I won't say anything. And I didn't say it just for the sake of saying something. I said it because I fully believed, is this a little too bright? It might be. Like,
Yeah.
I'm testing it on different ways, like in headphones, different kind of headphones, out loud in speakers. Like, I feel like it's a little bright in these instances. I should say something.
Do you ask them in questions? Do you give notes in questions sometimes? The best way to
Do I? Sometimes, yeah.
So, hey, do you think this thing's a little too bright? Can sometimes asking the question that way, at least, like, is always I always liked being asked that, as opposed to somebody saying like,
That's a good note. Okay.
like, hey, the hi-hat's too loud.
Yeah.
Then it's just like, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
And then it creates this weird conflict.
Sure.
Don used to do that to me. He'd be like, do you think no, and I was weird. I was like, it was something I learned. He would be like, what do you think about that? Do you think the vocal's too bright? Do you think the vocal's too soft? Does it need to be a little louder?
Interesting.
Then sparks a conversation.
Yeah.
And especially about subjective things. I always notice like that being a very and that's what you get. You get the
you get the inquisitive,
as opposed to like,
maybe.
what?
Instead of the wall. Like,
Yeah.
No, it's perfect.
Like, hey, do you like, I mean, the one that pisses everybody off is this song still too slow, do you think?
Oh.
Like, no, it's not.
Amazing.
Because then they're thinking like all the work it takes to speed it up
Yes,
again.
my gosh.
But like, I mean, like, do you think the vocal could be hotter? Then it's like, it starts a conversation.
Yeah.
And then I think honestly, like a few times, like not I mean more than half the time, like it ends up like changing it, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I think that's a good note.
Yeah.
Or then be like, no. But then it makes them go, well, if he thinks the snare's too loud, I wonder if the like mixed guys I know, like they'll be like, well, if that's what he's thinking, I wonder if it's just because I'm hitting the stereo bus a little. Some
Yeah.
guys think that
Yeah.
way, especially the good ones, like the
Sure.
the pros. Then they'd be like, well, why is he asking that question?
Yeah.
Like, is it because it is too loud, or is it because like am I just mixing the drum bus just to like a certain way? Like, some guys just the question makes them go do a little double check and be like, I like it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, all right, cool.
Okay.
So
That's a good note. Thank you.
because there's a wall that goes up when it's like, I hate that. I mean, you
Mhm.
should definitely say like, there's something weird going on with this.
Yeah.
Is there something weird going on? Because I feel like it's sounding weird in my things. Like, is it sounding the same on yours?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
people be like, no, it sounds great on mine. All right.
Great.
So,
Let's take another quick break. We'll be back with the rest of the questions.
music is
For
hard.
sure. It is.
That's what, after we clap, we're going to say music is hard.
Okay, here we go. 3,
Two.
2, 1.
Music is hard. Music is hard.
Welcome back. Music is hard.
It's hard. It's not easy, guys. If anybody says it's easy, they're wrong.
So true. Oh, gosh. Question 6. Here we go. We're moving through it. We're trying. What's the last piece of art you consumed that inspired you?
There's I really like some of the songs off of Meghan Trainor's new record.
I haven't heard it yet. That's interesting.
So what's really funny is in that whole record, my wife and I were listening to that record in the car the other day, and we decided that it would be a very, very interesting game, drinking game, to take a shot every single time she references a butt on the record.
Interesting.
Like, ooh, she got that booty. Take a shot.
Great.
Just like every time, all of a sudden, it's that with a baddie with a booty. Take a shot. This is like you would be hammered before the third song.
Amazing.
We did not do that. We thought it would be fun, but that would be wild. But there are some songs on that record that I'm like, I heard and I was like, oh, they had fun doing this.
Yeah.
Like, you listen to some songs, you're like, they had to have had fun making this song.
Yeah.
So that's what
great.
I would say that one.
Okay. For me, I've been listening to a lot of producers' records recently. A lot of new ones have dropped. One of my favorite producers, Sango, hip hop, rap type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, Kate Renata, a little more electronic.
Oh yeah,
still,
Kate Renata's great.
Hip hop, rap. One that just came out, Kaylin Ellis, same vein. One of my favorite producers, Lo-Fi. He's got a bunch of remixes that I love to listen to.
Lo-Fi.
And like, he started in metal bands. Like, he's got a wide range of stuff he does.
A lot of people started in metal bands that are our age.
Oh yeah. But my answer for this is going to be the Pink Polo EP from Medicine and Masego.
Okay.
Came out 2016, and still to this day, it's so creative and inventive and strange and fun and loose, but like kind of transformative, I guess, for me. Like, it's just, there's an air of like, we don't care what's happening, but also we care so much about what's happening.
Oh, cool.
Like, they just had, it seems like they had so much freedom making this record. It's like electronic trap house.
Both of our responses had something to do with imagining the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh my gosh.
Like, they must have had so much fun making this record. Like, they must have felt so free making that record. Like, that actually comes through.
And it's so difficult
through.
for something like that, something so conceptual, to come through on a record.
It's hard when you make music a lot, or you're involved in music a lot, and you can tell, like, oh, they made this because it was their job.
Right.
They made this because they were hired.
The label said, hey, do this.
And the label said, hey, this is what we need. Do
Yeah.
something like that. And then you're like, oh, they sounded like they had fun on this.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, like, that's just wild to think like, wait, like, why shouldn't they be having fun? And I'm not saying they don't have fun, but like, it does, you can tell.
You can tell.
It comes through when it's like, you did not sound like you had fun making.
Yeah.
I have heard songs from singers. I'm like, this did not sound like, you did not sing it as if like you were having fun.
Yeah.
And
or you meant it in some way.
Like,
maybe it's not a fun song, but like yeah.
But like you didn't sound like your full self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you sounded like you phoned it in. And that's like, and it's a great song and it does a thing, but you're like, man, you can just tell, like, I don't know, it just sounded like you were just singing something.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know what it is. You just know it. You just know it. And it's really hard to, and I think some people get really uncomfortable with that. They're like, they saw right through me.
Yeah.
That's a sucky situation to be in, but like, it happens. It happens. And the fact that we both were like, oh, these records, like we could almost in a way feel like what they were feeling. And like, that's the whole point. That's a golden moment. Like, hey, it connected. Like somebody's thought was transferred to some sort of artistic piece that made somebody else feel the same way that they were feeling.
Yeah. Man.
That's hard.
Music is hard.
Music is hard.
Maybe that's the
music
title
is
of the
hard.
show. I don't know.
Art is hard.
Yeah. Okay. Question 7. Who do you know personally that inspires you to be better?
I would say, besides you, because obviously this whole conversation is just a very introspective, like you really like get to the bottom of like certain things. You're like, you're one.
Thank you.
But for sake of this show, I'm going to bring somebody else. Brings up somebody else. I will say, my friend Sean.
Okay.
My friend Sean inspires me to be better. Because he's a mixer who's mixed so many people's stuff, and we and I were talking the other day, and he was talking about how he's like, dude, you are neck and neck with some of these other guys.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't puff up in a way of like, oh yeah, I am. I actually, the response I had was, well, then I'm close. If I'm close, then what's the 90, like if I'm 95% of the way there, if I'm 80% of the way there, what's that 20%?
Yeah.
It makes me want to discover what that little thing is. And that I think is by definition makes me want to get better.
That's great.
Because when somebody was like, hey dude, like it's basically, I had a friend who was like, dude, you're getting there. Yeah. You're getting there. Dude, you're right in line. I already know, like I'm hard on myself, so I don't take that and I go, yeah, man, like I'm really freaking awesome. Like I'm naturally hard on myself, so I'm very like, no, I don't believe I'm that good.
Yeah.
As those people. I truly don't. Like, I do not believe I am the same level as some of these other great producers out there. But if somebody out there said I'm pretty close, then I want to discover what pretty close means.
Yeah.
So, does that make? I hope that makes sense.
I thought it made sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
My answer for this episode is someone I met, I guess 2 years ago, maybe, named Jonathan Morrison. He lives out in LA. I knew of him before meeting him for the first time because he had a very popular tech YouTube channel. And one of the things I watch on YouTube is just tech stuff. So like his videos were always very well done. He was talking about stuff that I was interested in. I would watch his videos to get reviews for things that I was thinking about buying. He shifted that channel into mainly a music channel maybe 4 years ago. I don't know. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then just so happens, a friend of mine who lives here in Nashville, who is intertwined in my story, kind of how I got to town, he was friends with this Jonathan Morrison guy, because Jonathan Morrison was doing some Atmos stuff. He was diving into all the immersive spatial audio things.
Makes sense for a technical dude. That takes a technical genius to go do that. Because
and he was doing some mixes for my friend here in town for free. Like, oh, that's awesome. So I had lunch with my guy here. I was like, hey, would you mind connecting us? Like, I'd love to get him plugged in for Atmos stuff for the label, because we're always looking for new people. And he was like, yeah, for sure. So we had a Zoom, talked, seemed like a super nice guy. I, last year, made a trip out to LA. Me and a coworker were going to go see some artists play. And like a week before, I reached out to this Jonathan Morrison guy, just be like, hey, I know it's incredibly last minute. Good Lord, forgive me. But like, I'm going to be in town if you want to hang out. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. He invited me out to the studio he was working out. And like they were installing an Atmos room that day. So like I helped them like moving stuff in and out, just clearing the way for people to do stuff. And like he was so kind and so generous, just like letting me be there and like hear stuff that they're working on and like see the space and get a tour. Bob Clear Mountain mixes there. This is Apogee Studios.
Oh, cool.
And he was just like so nice and didn't have to be. We had only Zoomed once for like an hour, but he was just like so gracious and hospitable. Fast forward a little bit, he goes through this crazy rare health thing.
Oh, no.
And it was just like so awful. And he's getting better. Like he's better now, but like was just like basically laid up for months with like no hope of seeing the other side of the tunnel. But has just now like started making videos again, explaining the process and like how he's been feeling and why he's been gone and all this stuff. And I'm just so proud and so moved that he would still have the fight and the energy to do all this. And he posted a GoFundMe of just like, yeah, got a bunch of health stuff. I need help. I hate asking for help, especially with money, but like I need it. And like he needed, I think the goal was $15,000. In one day he had 35,000.
Oh, that's incredible.
And like it makes perfect sense to me because like he showed so much kindness and hospitality to me, basically a stranger, to come through and hang out for a day, seeing all this awesome stuff they were working on. Like I'm sure he's done that for so many people in its own way. Like maybe it's not bringing people to the studio, but just like showing obvious kindness to people. It's great that people are like, oh yeah, we gotta support this guy. He's a gem. Like he deserves to have support in this moment. So I'm very proud of him for speaking out about his journey, for asking for help, and that people have come to his rescue. It's just been great and wonderful to see.
Dude, be the friend you want to have be to you.
There you go.
That's not, that grammar was terrible.
Nope, I've heard it said worse.
Be the friend
I got it.
you want somebody to be to you. You know.
Clipping that out too.
Be the friend you want to have.
Oh, we got there. And by we, I mean you.
That was.
Hey.
Be the friend that friend will want to be back to you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Goodness. Question
9.
7?
9.
Oh, 9.
We're almost there. I'm doing my job.
Let's go.
Do you still believe in love? If so, why?
Do you believe in love? I worked on a really cool cover of that song.
Really?
Yeah. That Flats did.
Oh yeah.
And that was a fun song. I do still believe in love. I think love is the I think love is the thing that actually drives so much, if not everything, that happens on this planet. I really do. Like I'm compelled by love to my family, to kick butt because I love them. Like if I didn't love anyone or anything, I think I'd be a vegetable. I really would. Like I would do whatever. Like I would just be driven by the wind. I don't know. I think that's like, and I know people when they think about that, like they think about it in a purely romantic situation, but I'm talking about just over the board. Like, I think there are so many ways that people like channel love and do something about it. And like that could be love for something.
Yeah.
Like love for someone, love for like like the friends in their life,
Yeah.
the family, like the people they work with, the people that are in their neighborhood. Like I think it pushes so much, if not everything.
Yeah.
And it's love for something. Love for something drives something, whatever you do.
Yeah.
That's I do believe that. So is that an acceptable answer? I think so.
Survey says
Survey says
yes.
Yes.
There you
Okay,
go.
great.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's whatever you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that. Sometimes I want like I hope I answered it in a way that he was like, I was more talking about this. Like no, that's how I feel. I mean, because that's truly how I feel.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna say how I feel.
Yeah. There you go.
Do you still believe in love?
Yes, I do, and I think that's the most confident yes I've had so far on one of these episodes.
Let's go.
And I don't know what's changed in the past couple of weeks since my last shoot, but just I feel like the answer is yeah.
Yeah. Come on. Dude,
I really have no idea of what I could point to. Like,
hey, you can't buy belief, bro.
You're right.
You said that.
I did.
You did that. You said that. Can't buy belief.
Yeah. So I can't explain it. The answer is just yes.
Let's go.
We'll see how it goes from there.
Right. That's all we can do. Last question.
We've arrived. Yeah. Good Lord. Question 10. What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for I want to be remembered for hospitality.
Ooh.
And for like and good. for the for kind of it's for the thing that I know some people know that I'm about, but it's the like I want to be remembered. I want people to look back and be like, that dude did not put himself like first every day. Like he was putting somebody else first every single day. Like that's what I would love. Like he put his family first. He put his friends first. He was working for that guy. He put all in on that thing. Like that kind of. I want people to see that I went above and beyond, and I, because I truly don't feel like it's all about. I really don't. I've never. Like, I'm not going to say I never thought it's all about me. There have been times where I was all up in my own shiz, but I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was at some point when after getting married, when I recognized like, oh, how big of a deal marriage is. Yeah. And how then that sort of trickled into wisdom that went all into my, like in every sphere of life. It's not about me. I'm so glad to be a part of other people's lives. And I just want people to know that I poured out, as much as I could for everyone else. Yeah. I really do. Like it's like because without anybody else, I mean, that'd be an island, and that would suck. Yeah, it really would. Like, I did have a moment. I did have a moment when I was in high school where it was like the first time I learned this lesson. And I was playing drums in our worship team. And I remember being so stoked that I was good. Like I had this moment where I was like, yeah, I'm good now. Like I'm good. Like I show up, like I play drums. And I was like, man, I'll show up. I'm crush this thing. And I had this moment with myself and thank the Lord where it was like, it is not about you, man. So what if you're good? What are you going to do with that? And I remember like actually chilling out in a way where I was like, you know what? Like I'm going to show the next time I play drums at church, I'm going to treat it as if I'm not playing for myself. I'm going to treat it as if I'm supporting the singer, supporting the rest of the band, and supporting this congregation. And dude, I don't know what it was. That Sunday, somebody said, dude, I don't know what it was. You've played the best you've ever played.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
And the amount of times I've told like young kids that story, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm not making this up. Someone literally came up to me and asked me to play at their church after the service.
Wow.
They're like, dude, could you come play at our church? And I was like, I was like, it was so close to that mental thing that I did where I was like, I'm just going to come. I'm just going to pretend. I'm just going to treat it, pretend this is not for me. Like, I'm just going to be a servant. I'm going to support, and I'm not going to like play drums like I'm the leader in the band.
Yeah.
And it was like a legitimate, like, whoa, it was that quick.
Yeah.
And, I think that was like the first, like, oh, interesting. So what I do and the gifts that I bring and the talents I bring, how they make other people look good, that's actually like, that's the biggest skill.
Yeah.
Is how you do what you do, what you do the best helps make other people look better and helps make their lives better. Like, that's the real, like, full circle. So I don't know. That's my long way of answering that.
That was great. Thank you.
What about you?
This episode, and it's hard to come up with something different for each one.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Like, you've answered all of these questions every single time.
I have. I think it's going to be, I honored people well.
Mm-hmm.
Something that
Mm-hmm.
I read in the Bible long ago. I think it's in Matthew 7. Don't quote me. Is like, Jesus was saying, I want to outdo you in honor.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found that concept so noble and wonderful and selfless. I'm like, man, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, that was my main, I guess, mission statement in my marriage. Just like, I want to outdo her, honor. Like, but now I don't have that relationship anymore.
I think it's because you did that it's probably because you did that very thing.
And like, I've been trying to figure out, where do I place that idea in my life now?
It's because you did that. That is such an interesting, knowing what you've told me, like, it's probably that person is not in your life because you outdid them in honor, and they couldn't, and they that's not that person, the way that's not what that person was wired to live with. Like, there are people who literally, like, would come alive with that kind of mentality from a spouse.
And yeah, like I was saying earlier, like, I'm not competitive. So I'm not interpreting that scripture like, oh, I gotta beat her. But in a healthy, like, because I love you, I'm going to try and outdo you in this. Yeah. So yeah, I've been trying to figure out, okay, where do I put that? That relationship doesn't exist anymore. But then I realized, like, I can do that in my friendships.
You
in my
absolutely
work,
can.
In everything.
You absolutely can. That's pretty great. I'll outdo you in honor. I'm gonna outdo you in, like, I'm gonna out, like, hospitality you. I'm gonna outserve you. Like, I'm gonna out friend you. Like, really, like, dude, like, that is 100%, like, that's a freaking great, like, he freaking outdid everybody. Like, he did. And it was only because, and that's the thing, is when you were so I think what I was talking about before, like, when people are motivated by love, like, that is something that's a love motivated thing. Because if it was a selfish motivated thing, you would outdo people to make yourself look good.
Yeah.
Or outdo people in order to make them feel good, so they did what you wanted them to do.
Oh, yeah.
But so it would stop at a point. Like, it would be a means to an end. But if you are always outdoing, like, if you're saying actually outdoing, it's because you're motivated by making other people feel good about themselves, making them feel valued, which is expressing love to another person. So
I try.
survey says he succeeds.
All right. Well, we got through all the questions.
We did.
We did. We're going to take another quick break. Just do an outro, get everything clean. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're in our last moments here on this episode. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you
It's
for
been great.
having me, man.
Is there anything you want to point the people to? Like, can they follow you on social media or anything? Blah, blah, blah.
I really only use Instagram.
Okay.
And that's the only social media I use.
What's your handle?
It's just Kevin Rooney.
Okay.
KevinRooney.
Thank you for spelling that out.
Yes.
Like
the band.
Yeah.
And like the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Great.
Rooney!
Speaking of band, you toured with Rascal Flatts for a minute as their
Yes.
drummer or percussionist.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Flat story you can share with us on our way out?
Okay. Again, there's so many, but I would say one of the ones that I thought was the funniest is when we had these risers that moved.
Mm.
And there was a moment where I feared for my life a little bit.
Okay.
Because sorry, I just remembered there were a few times I feared for my life
Okay.
out on the flat. All right, I'll share the times I feared for my life. One of them was when the riser went out of control and it thought it was going to literally, because it went. So there were 2 tracks of risers. And like me and the drummer were on one, and it would like separate like during most of the set, but then kind of come in and move like some side to side,
Inspire.
kind of wave a little bit. And then for moments where we would do like a dueling drum thing, it would put us right next to each other. And that was
Yes.
great. But it was somebody's job to make sure that this thing moved and stopped when it was supposed to stop. And at this one particular show, it just kept going, and I thought I was going to I thought I was just going to fall, and I thought
Oh my.
all my gear, because it was just like it was a stop. Like it was, the stage went, and it went all the way to, because they had to hit like the panic button
Oh, that's terrifying.
where it just cut the power to it. And I thought I was just going to, me and all of my gear was going to fall off.
Good
and
God.
thank God it did right. And I was just like trying to play it cool and like keep
Jeez.
playing. But at the same time, I'm like, if I just stop playing and just run off this thing, like no one's going to be mad at me. And that was one.
That's great.
There was the time that there was we were playing the Washington State Fair, and there was a private plane that kept flying, like kind of like kept nosediving above the amphitheater, and we thought this was going to be a person who was going to like crash his plane into the stage. And we are playing
It's not funny.
where it's not funny, but it is like the moment where everybody's
oh my
like
gosh.
the moment, because none of us saw it to begin with the first time it came around.
Yeah.
And none of us saw it before that. And it came around and we're all like, what was that?
Terrifying.
And for those who don't know, like, especially bands like that playing in big amphitheaters, we need a way to communicate with each other. So there's a talkback mic that we each have. And I just remember people just being like, what the was that? And we were like, oh my gosh. And we're hearing people like, the police are after this person. It's in like restricted airspace. Like it's just, oh yeah, there were
Holy
police
crap.
fire. As we're playing Life is a Highway, like there's just police planes just up in the air chasing this guy out of the airspace.
Bro.
They chase him out. He comes back.
No way.
And in the ears, we're hearing, he's coming back. get off the stage. And
Wow.
we just ended the song, bam, and just get off.
Wow.
And we were just like, we were thinking it was going to be we had no idea who it was.
Of course.
They were not identifying themselves. So we thought this guy was going to just like suicide bomber into the stage.
Dude.
When I tell you that, like, cause you've seen like amphitheaters and you see how like kind of like go up like that. So like the very high seat, like the cheap seats, like the very high, this plane had to have been about 15 feet above them. Like where people's hair were like
wow,
freaking out, and it went straight over them the first time. Dude. And it was like, and it was scary.
Man.
So yeah, that was a story.
Yeah, you'll never forget
where
that.
I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely feared for my life. You never think you're gonna fear for your life when you're playing when you're playing music. But
music is hard.
Music is hard. Music is hard.
You can follow me at StefLo55, STEFLO55, and you can follow the show at A Moment Pod, basically everywhere.
Let's go.
That's it. Thank you for joining us for a moment. See you next time.
Is this good?
This is amazing.
It is?
Yeah, bro.